gonna see the gauntlet thing.
Welcome, everybody, to the Debate Politics AMA featuring Vaush.
Oh
Vaush
my
is an
gosh.
American left-wing YouTuber and Twitch streamer who debates
Streamer.
and discusses politics online from a libertarian socialist perspective. Considered a progressive, an anti-fascist, libertarian socialist, and a big fan of democracy, we welcome Vaush. Welcome to Debate Politics. The
Vaush.
questions will work as follows. You will get your preliminary question and 2 follow-up questions for Vaush. It is
Vaush.
possible that we will start to run out of time and need to reduce it down to 1 question per person.
That's
Vaush
true.
is reserved the right to not answer a question should he feel uncomfortable. I can remove them from the stage at Vaush's request. To ask a question, simply raise your hand, and we will invite you
How
on
much
stage
do you
to
like
ask your
horses,
question.
Vaush?
Please remain respectful to our guest when considering what question to ask. So I'm going to go ahead and start writing down everybody's name, everybody who has their hand.
Is it true that you're a horse, Vaush? There you go. I've already asked a question, but Vaush did not answer because he's uncomfortable.
Hand up, and I will just be rotating through the audience. For the first person that we are going to allow to ask the question, MT Foxtrot. MT Foxtrot, you are being invited to speak. If you are feeling too uncomfortable to literally say anything, just type it in chat, and I would be more than happy to add you to the list. Go ahead, MT Foxtrot.
Just one moment. Seems my headphones have died and I'm going insane. I'll just work with it. Pretty big into Marxism, and I've watched your stuff for a while. I've kind of stopped watching very recently.
Why did
But I
you
was going
stop?
to ask, in all of your stuff, it seems like you reject Marxism. Can I ask why that is?
That's what?
In what way do you think I reject Marxism?
Well, it seems that you reject the notions that basically led Marx to coming to a dictatorship of the proletariat, specifically with your transition from a capitalist economy to a quote-unquote market socialist economy with an anarchist revolution following it. That's all I could really find.
Since when does Vaush reject Marxism? What? Oh, it's a tanky. It seems that way.
I was going to ask why that is.
Well, a dictatorship of the proletariat is just a worker-run society. It doesn't literally require a dictatorship. The word meant something different back then. I think
I'm aware of that.
A market socialist society is a worker-run society. And under market socialism, there's literally no bourgeois class. So at that point, the only remaining thing you have to deal with is the commodification of the economy. And I think that's something that's better done incrementally, because doing so requires a bunch of really tectonic economic shifts that, if done poorly, could lead to mass famine and starvation. And I don't think that's good.
I don't think that's good either.
Wresting political power from the bourgeoisie is the necessary first step, and that all of the twiddly little economic micromanagement stuff has to come after that.
Right. I'm going to follow this up not with a question, but rather a continuation of this.
Accusation.
I'm going to disagree because socialism cannot function on a market basis.
Please refrain from trying to debate Vaush. This is intended as an AMA. I would recommend to ask your last question.
I'll simply concede and say that market socialism isn't socialism. It's just a portion of it. It's just a matter of which steps have to be taken and in what order to get socialism. But I agree, I'm not giving up on the full decommodification part.
All right, fair enough. I had that question stuck in my head. I did not expect to go up first.
Still been a pleasure.
I guess, of course. I guess, what's it like being a YouTuber of your size, this involved with the rest of the online political sphere?
Fun, mostly. I mean, I get a lot of hate for it, and that can be frustrating at times, but for the most part, I enjoyed it. I feel pretty happy about the fact that, at least according to the messages and emails I've gotten, I feel I've had a pretty decent rate of success in improving people's lives, giving them...
Keep in mind, I don't quite get hate yet, but you can actually send me an email. On my YouTube description, you can find my email. Let me see if I received any fan emails from the fans. Okay, it seems like I have not received any fan mail yet. I can send you hate if you want. I not necessarily crave it. I do not necessarily crave hate.
Arguments to help them deal with family and friends, that sort of thing. I wish I could sway more people, but I think that I would feel that way no matter how much influence I had.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to our next questioner is Ziva. Come on up, Ziva. You have been invited to the stage.
Hello, Vaush. I'm a big fan of your work, big fan of your content. I'm a real Vaushite. I was just wondering what you think of gooners, gooning, and things of that nature.
I'm going to choose to be autistic and answer the question seriously. I actually don't like the fetishization of bad mental processes that much. It's one of the reasons why sometimes I can be really suspicious of people who like consensual non-consent, because I feel like the eroticization of things that are bad for you but you like doing anyway.
What is
can be a really
goonieism?
good way of,
I don't know what that
self-justifying
is.
the continuation of those things, right? Like, oh, it's not an abusive relationship. It's just a constant, like, dom-sub dynamic. Or, like, oh, I'm not a porn addict. I actually just have a kink for this specific thing. You know, like that kind of stuff.
There are people asking in chat, I apologize for interrupting, asking, what is a gooner?
They don't even know, my God. Oh, gooning is like, it's when you have a fetish for being a masturbation addict. So, like, the idea being, like, it's not just that you're an addict to that, but like the act of being one is like this itself the kink. It's like kind of it's like an Ouroboros a little bit, you know. You're kind of getting off on the getting off a little bit.
All right, sorry.
So like
no love
for us gooner Vaushites. All right.
Plenty of love and sympathy, most of all, I think.
All right, thank you for your time.
Take care.
True.
Don't rub it raw.
I'll be honest, that was the first time I've ever heard that word. I've never heard of that word before. Anyway, the next person we have on the line is Cam Skittle. Cam Skittle, you are being invited. Now, keep in mind, if you do have a question, go ahead and just @me. If you have a question and you do not want to be on stage to ask your question directly, I can ask it on your behalf. If you're too nervous to do so. Go ahead, Cam Skittle.
Hey, my name is Victoria. I identify as xenogender, and I know you have a neutral to positive outlook on xenogenders, and I know that you are a gender abolitionist, but do you view xenogenders as the possible venue through gender abolition, as in the personalization of gender to a point where the societal hierarchies that were built into gender disappear? Or do you think there's another way you can do gender abolition that doesn't involve
I think it could be an avenue.
First and foremost, I mean, I'll be respectful towards what people want me to call them, but no, I don't really think that's the path to liberation. The main issue that I have is that at that point, a xenogender is basically just an identity, but the term gender identity is loaded with so much innate, like, cultural baggage in a way that identity itself is not. I feel like we're doing the opposite of the right thing, right? Rather than trivializing gender as a construct, rather we're expanding the range of the non-trivialization of gender. You know, ideally, I guess, it would be with... I've met some xenogender people who just, like, don't care, and I think that's pretty cool. But I have also met some people online who seem like their version of xenogenderism seems to be, like, spending 6 hours a day talking about their gender and everyone else's gender and this, that, the other. And, like, at that point, it just feels like we've sort of wokely circled back around to caring more than anybody else about the topic that I don't want to even be, like, a cultural fixation, you know? But again, that's like kind of how people...
I guess I can sort of see where he's coming from here. I suppose, right? I guess I can understand where he's coming from here.
Handle it thing, and I guess there's a possibility that a lot of xenogender people just, like, don't give that much of a shit, and it would be fine then, I guess. It's difficult to know because, like, realistically, 99% of xenogender people that anyone is going to meet are going to be online, and a lot of them are going to be really young, and a lot of them, by virtue of being online and young, are going to be dumbasses. So there's kind of a negative skew in terms of perception.
Well, that's not true. I'm not young, I'm online, and I'm still a dumbass. Which means that I've disproven Vaush, which means that I win. Maybe.
But, you know, I mean, whatever. I don't think it's too big of a deal.
I would like to say that I think would you say that maybe a large part of the reason that they talk about being xenogender so much is because it is such a new concept, and because of the fact that it is often made into a joke, as in conservatives going, oh, so you literally identify as an attack helicopter, without understanding like the nuances of the issue.
Sure, but I don't think anyone ever will, is the problem. Like, people can barely understand gender as it's tied to our binary understanding of sex. Like, gender roles, even in the purview of cisgender people, still escape the understanding of most. Xenogenders will never be a generally accepted thing because the understanding of gender and social theory you need to have in order to get it literally just exceeds the brain functioning of most people. It's such an upper bar, you know? Usually you have to settle on simplified concepts if they're going to, like, sort of meet mass adoption, and I guess I just can't imagine.
I actually don't agree. I don't think I agree. I don't agree on this. Vaush is wrong here. Yeah, I actually think he's wrong here as well. I think it's a bit of a strange way to look at it, that people will just never get it. There are many concepts that seemed like there are many current concepts that would seem unthinkable to understand for many people in the past, and yet here we are, and they became the norm. So I don't see that. We're very hopeful right now. I mean, I am always hopeful, of course. I'm Lucy Hazeh. I'm the positive streamer.
Stuff is understood in that way. There are cultures historically and around the world today that have more than two genders, but to my knowledge, there has never been one that has understood xenogenders, because I think it's like a very esoteric academic thing. Doesn't make it wrong, mind you, but like, goddamn, can you imagine explaining to your average like Midwest dad what all this means? Well, helicopter gender doesn't literally mean you identify as a helicopter. It means that there are attributes and so.
No, I think that's a stretch. I think that's a stretch that is just unknowable and not understandable to people. Like, as society moves forwards, our understanding of concepts also broadens. So I just don't believe so. I mean, like, money is made up, but I can tell that at the I can use that at the bakery. Yeah, exactly. Like, it's intuitive once people learn it. I think so, yeah.
Social characteristics ascribed to helicopters. Oof, good. Godspeed. Look, if we all get smarter, maybe we'll be ready for it.
And then my last follow-up question would be, isn't this kind of the same type of arguments that people have used against non-binary people when they were first introduced? Oh, well, now you're kind of complicating the gender theory even more by adding a new factor that isn't man or woman. Originally, we just had gender nonconformity, but now you're kind of trying to add a spectrum outside of the binary. So I don't know, I think you're just kind of complicating things, and try explaining non-binary to a Midwestern dad. Isn't
I
that
agree.
Kind of the same type of argument?
No, yeah, it is. I say the same stuff about non-binary people. I think it's a bit easier to get non-binary than it is to get the broader theory behind xenogenders. But yeah, my basic criticism, the idea of it like expanding the range of scope and attention given to a subject that I want to abolish.
I don't agree with this. In fact, more and more people, I think, are accepting of non-binary identities. Like, we don't possess some special type of intellect that allows us to understand these things. These things fundamentally are not extremely complicated. You don't require a special level of intelligence to understand these things and these concepts.
Entirely, and being too academically nuanced for most people to really be able to get. That applies to non-binary people too, just to a lesser extent, because I think the concept's a little bit more intuitive, like not identifying with either, right? Because then it's sort of like like some people treat non-binary as a third gender, and that's not correct, but people do, even left-leaning people.
Yeah.
So people struggle even with that. People are, we're all a bit challenged up there.
Also, side note, association to animals even describing sexuality had been not uncommon in history. True. That is correct.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess my final words would be Vaush bad.
We are playing around expressions.
Take care.
So for the next person, we're going to
All of you,
invite
Minister.
Netrunner. Netrunner, I'm looking for you. Sorry, give me 1 second, Netrunner.
I guess I just
There's
don't
so
agree
many
with
people in
Vaush
this
here.
chat. Apologies. Let me just go ahead and just type the
I
name.
just don't agree
We have a
here.
couple of questions from in chat that can be asked on the stage. Do you want me to ask?
Oh,
the
I
question?
already have them in the list. All right, come on up, Netrunner. Go ahead.
So to go back on the Roma stuff, there is a specific dance called the fox dance. Rokatank. No, przepraszam. Rokatanc. It's probably tanz, like the Polish word taniec, right? Tanz? Is it tanz? I mean, highly sexual dance, intimidating coupling foxes. That's interesting. I mean, foxes are pretty cute animals. That has to be said in non-uncertain terms, right? Foxes are just cute. Also, I might as well ask you while you're here, what did you think of the Roma coverage I did on the President Sunday channel, Karasu? Did I do it justice? Do you feel I did it any justice?
So my first question to you would be,
We have to explore
would you
the
rather
topics
not
more.
have the right to vote, or would you rather be drafted?
I think that for me personally, I would rather not have the right to vote than to be
Oh,
drafted.
it felt like you disappeared at some point. That's why I'm asking.
But I think societally, I would rather everyone be drafted than everyone be disenfranchised. It's one of those like the consequences of like broad social disenfranchisement exceed proportionally the consequences of an individual's disenfranchisement in a way that drafting doesn't. If anything, I think drafting gets better for the individual the more people are drafted, because that means it's like a socially collective problem rather than just you get specifically.
Yeah, well, only if you're being collectively drafted, that is. Anyways.
Yeah, I mean,
So my
ideally,
second
I
question is,
hope I wouldn't be the only one. I don't think I'd make a great soldier anyway.
yeah, if you're the only one or you're one in a certain...
Actually, mandatory draft does not care if somebody would make a great soldier or not. That was the whole thing with new cadets being bullied and people committing suicide. Just saying, hello, Gabrielle Thingamajing. Hello. White names. I can't believe. Can't believe the chat is infected with
Bro,
whiteness.
so my second question is, like, what's worse? Mutilation or forced sex?
Mutilation or what sex?
Forced sex.
You mean rape?
Yeah.
Well, I suppose that depends on the mutilation. I don't know if you can... These are two very wide axes on either side of things. I mean, losing a fingertip versus, like, brutal gang... There's a lot of factors involved in this math. I don't have my abacus in front of me.
Just answer it, just make up the details on your own.
Well, then it wouldn't really be answering your question. It would just be me waffling about all the variables involved. I don't really have a way to answer the question.
Can you not do it?
No, I don't think so. I don't think there's enough information provided for there to be like a moral conclusion.
What is the question?
Is it fine if I make the details?
You can, though I don't know if it'll necessarily solidify my answer.
Where did he go?
To make the details, I assume.
What was that?
Netrunner. Okay. All right, we're gonna move on.
I can confirm having passed the mandatory drafting in my country is recommended for promotion. Luckily, I did civil service instead of the military one. Like, people used to commit suicide when they were drafted. People would just avoid draft like there's no tomorrow. For sex and mutilation. Why would you ask that?
On to the next person. There's
people
a
trying to shock
lot
Vaush.
of people asking questions. So we're gonna go to the next person, who is Russia
It's just
Defender.
wasting time.
Yo, what's going on, guys? What's up? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Howdy.
Go ahead, Russia Defender.
All right. So,
Russia defender.
I had a question, Vaush. Right. So
Is it about
last
Russia?
week I saw you did a video, which I was pleasantly surprised by. You actually stood up for white South Africans against the leftists who are kind of like Professor Flowers and all these people. So the question is, what are you doing in the next 90 to 100 days to defend the white race? What are you going to be doing in the next 100 days to defend from the leftists and the South Africa stuff? Go ahead.
Well, when I'm going downtown, I practice defensive driving so
What?
that I, a member of the white race, aren't hurt by like getting T-boned at an intersection. You know,
What?
I don't want to like get injured. I look both ways when I cross the street.
Dude, stop trolling, dude. Why are you trolling? Go
You
ahead.
asked me what I'm doing to defend the white race. I mean, I know I'm just one part of it, but I mean, oh, I've been trying to go on walks daily, even though it's been pretty warm lately.
When are you gonna take the Ukrainian refugees in? When are you taking Ukrainian refugees in? That's the question.
Into my house, but we're all out of beds here.
Oh, but I thought you cared about Ukraine. I thought you cared about the Ukrainians who are, killing Russians.
This is such a weak question to ask. That is, when will you be taking Ukrainian people into your house is such a bad ass question to ask. Do you know why? Because in Poland, people literally took Ukrainian refugees into their houses. I took refugees into my house. I had 2 Ukrainian refugees in my house. A lot of Polish people literally did take Ukrainian people into their houses. So it's such a weak question to ask as a gotcha. That happened. That was the majority of help provided for the refugees, Polish people taking them into their own apartments to live. So there is no weaker gotcha, quote unquote, than saying, when will you start accepting Ukrainian people into your houses? It already happened. It's happening. Like, come on. That's weak. Even if Vaush wouldn't do it, it does not change the fact that a huge amount of people do and did. Moreover, asking it to America and implying that refugees should run away to the US while they're actually hosted by European countries. True, Ilian Saroni, true. It's not just houses, it's apartments as well. Whoever had any space at their apartment, etc., people just shared a bed, a room, whatever, you know? Of course.
Do you, out of curiosity, you care about Russia, right? I'm getting that from your
Yeah.
name. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So, right now, if I was you, if I was doing your bit, I would be a
Right.
Ukraine defender, and I would be hyperbolically representing how retarded you people are by acting the way you're acting right now. So you're, like, if you want to make
What's
the
your
point, you should settle a bit and think, okay, what's an actual argument I could make? And not like...
You're not presenting arguments. You're presenting trolling. You're not presenting any arguments.
All right, I'm going to move them
Haven't
over
been
to
asked
the
a real question.
audience. Yeah, yeah, that wasn't...
If I find, listen, if I find a
if it makes you
Ukrainian
feel
on
any
Grindr,
better,
I'll suck them off, okay? That's my help with the war effort.
If it makes you feel any better, it's the first time.
What do you mean, fake Alec Cal Parker? You have friends within the giggler community. In the pond, everybody's a friend within the pond. Name one. Somniostatic.
I've seen that person, so...
You friend. See? Gabrielle Cinemajig.
I like people like that.
Oh, okay.
I think.
Okay, there's gonna be a number of those.
That's
Just
fine.
FYI.
No. I like people like that. I just
There have
want
been some
them
very,
to.
very
I just want them
offensive
to.
questions that people want to ask you. So
I just want them to try their best. Like, wait. They can hear me right now, right?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so as a forewarning, if their goal is, so I'm letting them know because I want them to try their best. You can't out rhetoric me. So if you think you can get me on something, it has to be of substance. Like, you're not going to get me on, like, what, like, bring the Ukrainian, like, think of something. Like, I've said things surely you disagree with, right? Like, you have to give me a real, because you're not going to, like, one-up me on like, doing a goof. Because I'm great at goofing. I love goofing. The best goofer people have ever seen.
see.
I'm just letting them know.
And for the next person, we're going to invite Freddie. Go ahead, Freddie, with your question.
Hi. Okay. First, I want to say thank you. I've been watching you for like many
What?
years, and I'm actually like kind of nervous
God,
right now.
fake
But I work as a hairdresser, and I've had this reoccurring client that the first time I had her, she just outwardly told me that she's a part of QAnon, and I live in Florida, and I'm a closeted trans person, and I don't know what to do in that situation.
Jesus Christ. Okay, well, the honest truth is, like, in my experience, people who are a part of QAnon, or people who, certainly people who admit to being a part of it, are essentially unreachable. There's this unfortunate, like, because my hope when I went into this, right, was like, well, everyone can be reached. And that's true on, like, an averages scale, but on an interpersonal level, that is a level of far gone that is difficult to deal with. Yeah, I wouldn't even engage. I don't know if they'd be crazy enough to be, like, a threat to you if ever you did try to disagree with them or anything like that. I can't imagine a person saying that to me, like, directly, you know. Usually that stuff's online. Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, they told me it because I asked them what they do for work, which is just something you ask everyone, really. And she just outwardly told me, and it made me extremely uncomfortable. And she really likes me doing her hair, so it makes me, like, very uncomfortable.
Jesus
and,
Christ.
Yeah. But my other just very, like, side question, because I've
How
got to
does
show
a
off my
person
little
become
autistic
QAnon
rant in here
for
somewhere,
a living?
is what are your opinions on Five Nights at Freddy's?
The first game or the whole franchise?
Either or.
I think the franchise has spiraled off into, like, self-parody at this point, but I genuinely think that, like, the first one was, like, a spark in the bag, like, indie horror title that actually did. I think that the attention and the money that the first game made was totally deserved. I think it did a really, like, pretty amazing job of capturing a very specific kind of horror that even today is really difficult for people to capture, and certainly, as evidenced by the fact that the subsequent games have failed to do it. Yeah, I guess it.
True.
But at the same time, it's also kind of spawned the entire, like, mascot horror genre, which is largely dog shit. So I don't know. We can, I guess, chalk that up to, like, an even L and W ratio on the industry. I really do like the first one, though.
Thank you so much. This really means a lot to me that I was able to talk to you, because I've been watching you for so long. I literally, like, have your videos playing, but constantly, even in the background. Thank you so much.
Only the good ones, I hope. Take care and stay safe, all right?
Thank you.
Is
I want
Vaush
to make sure
saying
that
he has
everybody
bad
gets a chance to
videos?
be able to say what they want. And with that being said, we're going to go with our beloved Kraut.
Is Vaush trying to say that he has bad videos?
Why are you fat?
Honest to God, it's mostly Pop-Tarts. You know, they have a deceptive amount of calories. You'd think it's like, well, they're 2 wafers with some frosting, basically, but it's like 400 for a pair of them, which is pretty insane. I feel like they should be 300. I don't know what they're filling them with.
This is pretty based, and you've been a better sport than I expected. Salute.
Well, I mean, I'm just being honest with you. I'm speaking with nothing but malice right now.
Only the one question.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
So surprised. Yeah,
he didn't expect me to be ready with the Pop-Tart answer.
You had 2 more questions.
He did.
Kraut, did you want to be re-invited?
Nobody expects the Pop-Tart answer. They're all like,
okay. I'm
kind of really nervous.
Okay, so how about this? We're gonna go ahead and re-invite local Iraqi agent. They just came back.
What?
So let's go ahead and bring them back in.
What's good? What's good?
Go ahead.
Howdy.
Hi. Hey Vaush. I've listened to you quite a bit. You did a video which was like a I remember. I need to find the title, but it was like a commie leaving a letter from a former tanky. I actually became.
I remember that. Yeah.
I'm friends with them and everything. Like, how? Because I asked them and like, how was it like going through that? Like as you, since you were like the content creator and everything.
You mean receiving the correspondence to read?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I don't really like talking about people's personal anecdotal experiences on stream. Sometimes I think they can be very valuable as like a case study. I mean, anecdotes aren't entirely useless. They can be something you could look at and go like, ah, okay, well, this feels similar to me, to my experience in some way. I always feel really bad when I hear about stuff like that online, because while I have changed my perspectives a lot over time, I've never really felt like I've been duped by a group of people. And I feel like that would make me feel quite bad about myself, at least for a time. And I suppose I mostly just hope that they're feeling all right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh no.
Another question, I guess, would be so how do you feel about the general discourse of the amount of leftist infighting that's going on, at least online?
Well, it's nightmarish, as always. And I seem to be the center of a lot of it, unfortunately. It seems to be something
I am
lefties
the
have literally
center
always
of
done.
all of
I mean,
it.
a century ago, they would have killed each other over these disagreements.
What a
so it's nice to see
memester.
at least now that they're contained
Fake
mostly
Alec
to,
meme
you know,
Parker.
Twitter infighting.
Let's see for
I'd
that
really like it to
Pop-Tart
stop,
comments.
though. I mean, if nothing else, we can share
gosh.
in agreement on some key positions, right? I mean, even if we don't agree on all of the you know, detailed
That's
bits,
true.
there are
Vaush, that's
shared
still my argument.
causes
True.
that we should take seriously.
He
Anti-fascism,
should
that
stop
sort
do
of thing.
that.
But it seems we can't
He
often
should
even do that.
find
So
his own way.
the fight goes on.
I don't know.
Yeah. And one
Do better,
last
Vaush.
question. Are you
Do
happy
better.
that you did the debate with Hunter Avalone? Like, looking back on it when you did it, like, do you regret it?
Yes.
Is there anything with that?
100%.
Wish you could have done anything
Wasted
different? Like, what's your
time.
thoughts on that?
No, I'm certain. Well, I don't remember the specifics of the debate. That was very long ago, so I don't remember the
Yeah.
exact tactics. I'm sure I could have done a better job now, certainly. But overall, no, I'm really happy I had that. Hunter
I
Avalon
would've-
and I don't agree on everything, of course. He's not a socialist.
I would have
but,
the
you know,
best-
I think that his movement away from the positions he had then is still attributable to great personal
Vaush
character.
watches
and I
all
think
of
that that's
Lucy's
respectful,
videos
and
for
something
the
that should be
streams. True.
lauded
Actually.
broadly, because it is so rare
That's
to
true.
see people who profit from a given position.
He doesn't
moving away
even
from it out of
comment.
principle.
Yeah, I myself, like,
Unbelievable.
I went from the right to the left, and like Hunter, and even Kyle, were like the main three that switched me. So like that's why like I'm kind of like happy about it. But those were the only 3 questions. Also, horses. That's all I gotta say.
I really appreciate that. Thank you, and thank you, horses.
Okay.
Yeah, peace out.
Okay, we're gonna move on to the next person, who is going to be
So
Bird Lawyer.
basically-
Bird. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna try
Charlie.
to add Rayleigh. They got a whole bunch of people coming in. Bird Lawyer, you are being invited to speak. I'll
Right.
go ahead and add the other 2 people. Go ahead with your question, Bird Lawyer.
First off, I want to say thank you for finally watching It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia and recognizing it as the progressive bastion that it is. And the first question I have is Anna Kasparian. I don't know if you're ever going to get to the level of being friends ever again, but do you think that you could ever be like amicable with her? Or what would it take to get there?
No, I would like to. I genuinely, like, in spite of what a lot of people think, my numbers-wise, I really genuinely don't benefit from drama. I would like to be on good terms there. I would like to be on good terms with all of the people who I dislike, from the bread tubers to the tankies to whatever. I really don't. I don't want ever like any bridge permanently burnt. But you know, I think that her behavior right now is just ridiculous. So as long as she's behaving
Guess
this way,
that's
I
a
don't
good
really see a
answer.
path forward. If she ever stopped this and
Homeostatic. We need to add a Vaush emote.
circumstances change,
Let's
then
add
yeah,
a
I would be happy
Vaush
to.
emote.
I mean, I reached out to her privately even when the drama was sort of beginning
We
to
need it.
kick off.
People
you know,
demanded
ideally,
it.
I'd like to handle a lot of this stuff privately because, you know, maybe you can influence people behind the scenes and avoid what would otherwise be this big public confrontation. But,
True.
You know, we'll see if it ever happens.
That kind of leads into my second question. Knowing what you know now, if you could go back to the person tweet, like the day of, do you think that you would do anything different?
Well, I didn't engage with that tweet on Twitter. At least I don't think I did. My memory's pretty bad. I remember not engaging with that tweet directly. Maybe I liked some responses to it. Other people trashing her. I tried to keep a hand off it, and I messaged her privately. I think.
Oh yeah,
I
he
think
did.
looking back though, I don't know if she sounds kind of sanctimonious. I don't know if she could have been saved. The arc that she went on,
Saved.
starting from that point, it was already too
It
late.
does sound
I
a
would
bit-
have to go back further. maybe there was some kind of point before that where she lost faith in the left or in the online left enough that it like hardened her to any potential, like she grew too cynical to that. I don't know, maybe that happened years ago, but I think that point was already too late to keep this from happening. I could be wrong, though. That's just my impression.
All right. And then final question. Do you have like a 24-hour? I loved your 24-hour stream. So you have one planned in the future at some point?
Today.
Yeah. Well, the next one, I know that for sure we're going to do I assume so, at least. I haven't checked with them, but I imagine it would be good to. Progressive Victory fundraiser stream, because we haven't had Progressive Victory do canvassing and phone banking work during an actual presidential election. And this is going to be like an all hands on deck kind of thing. So I want to like help with funding there, even though I think they've secured funding from other sources too. So
I could handle a 24-hour one.
I'm really proud of the work they've been doing.
I think you all
and there's that.
agree with me on this,
there are
right?
a couple other I have in mind. I've been really hesitant to lately because my sleep schedule has been so bad that I legit worry that I'd be like 13 hours in and I would just like die in the chair and then sort of like rot here visibly with the flies and stuff. But I do like 24-hour streams. I'd like to do some again.
All right. Well, thanks, man.
I think I can handle them, no problem.
But we are going to the next person, who is going to be Deer. Let's
Deer.
go ahead and invite Deer to the stage.
Oh, Deer.
Give me one moment.
So I had a quick question for you, Vaush. What do you think Democrats can do in this upcoming election to have a repeat of 2022? I know it won't ever be the same like it was, but what do you think they should focus on?
Oh, dear.
That's really difficult. I think, honestly, I think they have to be meaner. It's like there are so many.
I guess it's not, though. If I ever know someone who pulls and I'm gonna nuke that bridge, I'm gonna set it ablaze. I will do all I can to make sure that bridge can never be rebuilt. I'm memeing. Vaush is not acting very Polish right now.
Dubs that
It
the
worries
Dems have
me.
left on the table because they're not willing to engage in or
My
sustain
fingers are
the
fucked
level
for too
of
many farts.
mockery that
Oh,
would be.
Pop-Tarts,
To be clear
sorry.
here, I don't mean
I
like
read it as
disingenuous
farts.
mockery. I think that the Republicans legitimately
Oh.
deserve and have earned quite a lot of it, and I think they need to be better about pushing that idea. Because at the end of the day, like, you can push the issues as much as you want, and on issues,
Hey, where's
Democrats are
the-
better across the board than Republicans, but people resonate with narratives most of all. And I just do not like the narrative that Democrats have pushed for decades now. The idea of our system works fine, it just needs some positive tweaks. I mean, that's been like the Clintonite line, and it's been going on uninterrupted since the 90s. The loudest proponent of it was Hillary Clinton, who had the brilliant idea to challenge Donald Trump's Make America Great Again with America is already great. What was she thinking? There has to be an acknowledgement of like a danger and a narrative to overcome it. And I think that's a real narrative, right? They just have to be willing to commit to that.
Yeah, I think I hold that same sentiment for the most part. Is start fighting fire with fire rather than being all cordial and nice all the time. And I think also another thing is I wish we would fight more with policy more than anything else. Of like, this is what we have. These people don't have this.
No, I agree. I think that they should also be much more direct about that. Recently, Biden has there's this thing where like Republicans would vote against the infrastructure bill, but then like they're taking credit for stuff that's being built with it, like a bridge is being built in a town, and they're like, yeah, look at this wonderful new bridge, but they voted against that. So I guess Biden has started having signs put up where it's like funded by Biden's bipartisan infrastructure bill, and I think they need to do that all the time, because basically every good thing in this country comes from at least at the very least some kind of like moderate compromise bill that gets passed, but usually it's Democrat pushed. You know, Republicans obstruct in the legislature, not Democrat. Well, not, you know, more so than Democrats at least. So yeah, take more possession over your wins and more possession over their L's, and I think that'll work.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good. I hold that same position as well. Is that like I feel Republicans are more reactionary and will block whatever it is just because a Democrat is trying to push it through, and I don't really think that's the right way to govern. I did have another question for you though. Is you mentioned Pop-Tarts? What's your favorite Pop-Tart flavor?
Generally, it's just the cinnamon. Is it just cinnamon sugar one? But I also really like. There was an Amazon Fresh opened up downtown in Seattle. I guess probably ages ago. I only just noticed it recently. But I really like the Amazon brand Pop-Tarts. They're really cheap and they're really good. And they're also 50 calories less per double for some reason. So they're like $1 per box. So I bought like 2 bags of them, and I've just had that in my house for a while.
Pop-Tart?
Dude,
I'm not
that's
entirely
dangerous.
sure.
Like
It's
$1
like
for a
it's
box of
some kind of
Pop-Tarts.
candy on a stick.
The hot
Right?
fudge ones though, if you've ever had those, where it's like a brownie one
It's
or
like a
something like that, like a
candy
Sunday
on
one,
that
dude.
stick.
I have that
yeah.
one all the time. It's so good.
I've had
the
every
cookies and cream
flavor
one is
that I
pretty
could
good
get.
too.
Yeah.
And then I had one more question for you. This is the last one. Favorite video game? Like your top 5.
I don't know if I can do a top 5, but Pathologic 2 is probably my favorite, like, artistically. World of Warcraft is the one that I've had most fun of in terms of, like, raw value and time investment, I guess. And in terms of just, like, sheer joy that I got while playing it, probably Banjo-Kazooie.
Ooh, I've never hopped into Banjo-Kazooie, but if you got the chance, a new Diablo game, it's pretty good. But I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me.
I'll consider your recommendation. Have a wonderful day.
What? What did he recommend?
Thank you very much.
What did that person recommend?
Sierra Nevada to the queue. Go on. I'm sorry, not to the queue, to the stage. Come on up, Sierra. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hey, Vaush, how's it going, man?
Howdy.
Hey, my question is more about
Diablo.
resource allocation within market socialism. So, in a market socialist economy, so we agree what that means, right? Where we might have certain nationalized sectors of the economy sort of commanding the, running the commanding heights, let's say, and the rest of the economy is made up of a sort of a decentralized network of worker co-ops operating in some sort of regulated market environment. How can we assure that the expansion of enterprises or the creation of novel enterprises in responding to changing demand side pressures in that market setting can be provided with the resources they need to be either created in the first place or grow in size without sacrificing the democratic worker ownership and sacrificing that basically to external holding of shares? Basically, how do we invest in growing co-ops where we need to grow them without like an external shareholder model? Do you imagine that this would primarily be done by like some sort of state-owned sovereign wealth fund-like institution? Or are you fine with like a certain percentage of each cooperative being essentially like a publicly traded company in a similar manner to our current stock market? Like workers throughout the economy sort of pooling resources together to invest and maintain a certain degree of ownership in some other co-op that they're not directly a part of? And if that's the case, how do we prevent this from consolidating back into like a capitalist model of private ownership?
I think there are a lot of ways to improve on the system we have currently, but I think the first suggestion that you offered, the one where there's essentially a state fund, is the one that I lean more towards as a preferable option. Canada has this. Well, every country has this to some, not every country, a lot of countries have this to some extent, but Canada has like an arts funding program where the government will give out grants to promising artistic projects. I think the one that I'm most familiar with that was funded as such would be Cuphead, the game that everyone's familiar with, where if something looks promising, they're willing to fund it. Now, I think that in the absence of all of the capital that gets bled into the stock market and our system of like venture capital investment, you know, profiteering, I think that leaves a lot of potential wealth and time on the table that could be used to build up a sort of local reservoir of wealth that communities can use in a democratic fashion. Maybe like on a national, state, and local level, you would have different treasuries you could pull from, and from the city you would have, I don't know, maybe after a year you have like $1 million or $2 on sort of discretionary investment that people could vote on or make cases to. I unfortunately, I think that like a big problem with proposing socialist solutions is that they sound quite droll and boring in ways that the capitalist investment model is not, because the capitalist investment model is all about proposing the image of this like risk-taking daredevil venture capitalist who single-handedly builds up this empire with the cash in their pocket, you know? In reality, this almost never happens, and I think a lot of social good
so
could come
boring,
from,
Vaush.
if you want to put a restaurant
Don't
or
be
a barcade
boring.
or something else in your community, go out there, go to like a town meeting and make a case. Like, hey, here are my design plans. I have the research and experience necessary to do this, but hey, give me money, give me money. Give me money, pay up. And that doesn't sound as exciting, but like, as a person who lives in that town, who would you rather have, you know, building stuff nearby? Somebody who had to go through a vetting process through local democratic means, or some like venture capitalist who's going to set up a Walmart?
Where's the adventure? Where's the coolness?
You know, it's. I think it's the best way to go, but it'll be complicated, more complicated certainly than I'm capable of understanding.
July.
Yeah, we can definitely agree it'll be complicated. A follow-up question for that would sort of be, when I'm thinking of
I will
model
make
of
all
market
the
socialism,
speculations.
one of the things
I am
I
a
try to think of
genius.
is like, what is the line in my mind for sort of sectors of the economy that I think would perform better under a sort of nationalized state-run monopoly, sort of like an NIH UK style thing when it comes to healthcare, but to other sectors of the economy.
A genius.
And what things should be left up to sort of decentralize whatever the market is doing.
I
but
will
we just want to have
centralize
it
the
worker controlled and introduce some
decentralization.
economic democratization.
You know?
How do you go about thinking of that delineation between, okay, this is the thing that we should operate sort of as a nationalized institution, and what sort of things, at least for now, keeping the ultimate goal of total decommodification in mind, what are the things for now that are like, that is the thing that I'm going to prescribe to the market?
I will
Depends on the
prescribe
elasticity
nothing.
of the demand. If it's something humans need and will pay out the nose for, whether or not it's
I
reasonably
will pay
priced,
the
healthcare,
nose.
housing, food, those are easy marks for decommodification. If it's
I have a
stuff that
nose.
genuinely is a luxury, for example, food is a necessity, restaurants are not. You know, I don't think we need to have some kind of gigantic state apparatus for
We
mandatory
do.
restaurant creation in every town.
We do.
That seems a bit silly
I
to
will
me. You know,
create
if
it.
people don't have the resources to go out to the restaurant, that's unfortunate, but it's certainly not as pressing as
You
making
lack
sure
the
they have
imagination,
housing,
Vaush.
food, healthcare. So it's whatever can be afforded, whatever can be done in a sort of outstanding concentric rings, starting probably, I imagine, with housing and food, and going out from there. Healthcare would be the next one.
Onion rings.
Whatever they feel can be done.
Okay.
That is
I
food.
guess my last question would be: do you think that your at least proposed transitionary state of market socialism, do you think
Transition.
that there are, what challenges do you see with that as far as compatibility with our current political structure, that being representative democracy operating under the presumption of federalism, basically?
They're compatible. There's agitation, but there's also agitation between democracy and capitalism. The reason I propose it as a transitory state is because of the compatibility. It means it's possible to address the economic shift and the political shift at their own pace in reasonable time without needing to do this gigantic single overhaul.
There is
that,
a grand
that
plan.
fixes both problems.
My
at once. I don't think I've
plan.
ever seen an example of that working in a like an industrialized society. I think
That
that would
was
be chaos.
scary.
So
Lightning.
the goal would be, you know, you make the changes you can
There's a storm
within
brewing.
the systems that you can, and then if you need to change
I'm
those systems, you
getting
make sure that they
scared.
can be done either in isolation or at the very least without upturning everything.
Great. I really appreciate the answers, and I appreciate your work. Thanks for letting me ask my questions.
I
to you. Thank you.
appreciate
Thank you,
your
and take
work
care.
more than that
Teodoro,
person
go ahead with your
does.
question.
Hi, Vaush. I have a quick question for you.
Hi,
You've made a lot of
Vaush. Why are
statements that are controversial. Like, for
Racist.
example, you said that owning child porn is morally neutral. Do you plan on defending or walking back those statements?
Well, I think it would be a pretty difficult statement to walk back because I didn't make that statement. I made the statement that in a system where the abuse and exploitation of children for economic gain is considered to be morally acceptable, in such a system, a person would have to argue then the heinous belief that the same could be said about child exploitation material. Now, as a socialist, of course, I don't believe that. I don't believe in child slavery either, which was the thing I was comparing to child pornography production. I think that most people would agree with my statement on that because it really refers, I think, to the fulfillment of basic liberal moral ideology. The idea that children shouldn't be hurt for the production of any sort of product. So hopefully you and I agree on that.
Okay, I think we do. And then my last question is, what is the youngest
Why are you
horse that you
racist,
would have
Vaush?
sex with?
Well, tragically, I'm just not attracted to horses. I want to be a horse. If I was a horse,
Nay.
I feel like I would be out there being pretty randy from an early age, though. I feel like I'd be a young horse thinking, I'm ready. I'm ready to get out there.
Okay. Thank
I
you
don't-
for
I
your
don't know
time,
how
and thank
old
you for
horses
answering my
are.
question. You were a better sport than I expected.
I don't even know how old horses are when they die. I don't actually know anything about horses.
We've got
The
Zeus.
bee.
Go ahead and ask your two
The
questions.
horse.
Sweet.
He wants
what's
to
up?
bat and Panada
Howdy.
the horse.
So, two questions. First question is simple. Which one do you value more, social issues or economic issues? No, you value both, but if you had to pick, which one do you weigh more?
I genuinely don't think they can be extricated from each other, right? Because economic
True.
issue in a liberal like capitalist society,
True.
economic harm or economic disparities are the weapons used to marginalize like racial communities in large part, right? Like a huge part
True.
of the post Jim Crow racism that Black people have experienced are sort of the economic downstream. I really don't think they can be separated. I think like I can imagine tyrannically evil worlds where there is only racism or where there is only classism. But they would both be fantasy worlds because I don't think they can really exist without each other.
Sure. Second question, which is when it comes to IP laws, right? Or people like owning like their likeness or product. How would that operate under your social system?
God on it, true. I don't know how IP laws should really be set right now, because I don't think they should be totally abolished. I think that some level of IP protection is necessary under our current system. Under a socialist system, even a fully decommodified one, I don't know. I mean, even if people don't have money to spend, I feel like there's still some value in protection of a person's intellectual property at some level, but not really at the level that exists now. I mean, current IP laws are just like a Disney creation, basically.
True.
I'm not really sure. It's
That's
really
actually very
complicated.
correct.
I
They are
definitely
a
want
Disney
IP law to be
creation,
scaled
yeah.
down massively from where it is right now. I don't really know where I want it to stop.
No.
Wait, I am playing a game. Is it not visible? Oh! I've been playing a game all this time. You just haven't seen it. Oh my god. You should have told me earlier. Wait, where is it? There you go. The game is on now. There you go. I've been playing all this time.
Oh, that's all good. You're being pretty honest. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Take care.
Go ahead and A Frog.
Hello, Vaush. I'm
Howdy.
Zaxby's. Nice to meet you. I learned of you when I was younger, and on like the complete other side.
And now
of the
you're
political
old.
aisle. So I'd like to address some things that I would have asked you then and now. Why
Now
are your
you're
opinions on Jewish topics if they feel very detached from the reality of Jewish culture and general Jewish sentiment from what I've observed of your videos?
Oh.
What positions do I?
Is that damn. Now we're tapping into the subjects that we've been discussing today. Now we're tapping into the subjects that we've been tapping today. It's gonna be about Zionism, isn't it? Huh. Okay, let's go. I want to hear it.
I have that break with Jewish people's understanding of their own culture.
Okay, so the select example I would think of generally when I like relate to this idea is this video you did on Rudy Rockman a while ago, who, to be fair, is a Zionist, and I don't agree with Zionism as an ideology.
Okay.
But he based his argumentation on things in which Jews generally do agree to open it up to Zionism, which, exploitive of Jewish identity, but whatever. But the points he made, you called fascistic or Nazistic. You said the idea that all Jews have a shared culture and sentiment is anti-Semitic, even though that's something that Jews believe. We believe that we're people who have a shared culture and belief. That's not something that's intrinsic to Zionism. That's something that's Jewish.
Oh, then I would consider that to be a fascistic belief of Jews. It is factually incorrect. There are Jews all over the world. There are Jews who can't talk to each other, born in different countries, with completely different understandings, not only of themselves and of their culture and their language, but of the Torah.
That's not correct. That's not correct, actually, what Vaush is saying. Keep in mind, there's nothing wrong with having a single cultural heritage. Oh, yeah. Like, it is true. Well, it is true that the Jewish community is extremely varied and that the understanding of the Torah can be different, and that even in some cases languages can be different. There is a sense of shared Jewish culture, so to speak. Yeah, of course. I don't think there's anything fascistic about this. Like, the idea of the Yiddish land was the idea of Jewish people not being tied to any particular nationality, land, or, place or nationality. But it was the idea that Jewish people are tied through a single language, Yiddish, and through a shared culture. Does that make sense? And it is not a culture in the nationalistic sense. That is something that needs to be explained. Like fascism comes from an extreme nationalism. And the shared culture that is being spoken about here has nothing to do with that. It has nothing to do with a shared national identity, so to speak. But it's true that Jewish people, do share a culture. Yeah, of course.
The idea that there's one culture is ridiculous. There is no monoculture of any racial group. Not even the Amish. There are splits even in their relative.
Jewish people are not a racial group. So, yeah, Jewish people are not a racial group. It's like the idea that Jewish people are a racial group is a Nazi invention. You know?
Tiny community. There is, of course, a shared cause with Jewish people, given the fact that they face so much global maligning, right? I mean, there's definitely no, it's not a complete break. But I don't like the idea of promoting a monoculture, because the inherent linking of culture to blood is something that's been used to justify, I'd say, a lot of bad ideas, most of which
that is such a misunderstanding of, there is no linking culture to blood. Jewish people are not a racial group. People of all races can be Jewish. Okay? That's one. And what we understand as Jewish culture is actually a conglomeration of several microcultures, so to speak. Okay? It is not a monolithical culture tied to blood. It is nothing of the sort. There is sort of a case to be said about Ashkenazi Jewish people, but keep in mind that Jewish people can be converts. Jewish people cannot be Ashkenazi, but Jewish people can be Sephardic or from any other group. So it's meaningless at the end of the day, the genetic lineage. It's meaningless.
Unfavorable to Jewish people, historically speaking. So I think it's good to trend away from that.
Yeah, I have my own grievances with that, but I can understand the perspective. Yeah, I don't have an issue with that. Let's see.
Like, to me, it feels like maybe I should debate Vaush on that. It feels like a misunderstanding of what Jewishness is, in my opinion.
I need you to answer this as seriously as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you think frogs are provable ontological good?
No.
The little green things. No? They're not?
I intersubjectively believe they are.
Oh, damn.
I know, I'm sorry. The
it's
burden
so
of being a
over.
moral anti-realist.
It's so over. Okay. Shout out to the Gunnar Army and Rose. Thank you, Vaush.
Take care.
Thank you, Ziva, for being a good
Very well.
Gunnar.
We're going to go ahead and move on to the next person, who's Ketamina, who's already in the list. Go ahead and speak, Ketamina. The floor is yours.
Hello. So Vaush, I'm in your server. It is a lovely place.
So yes, I will say hard disagree with Vaush's answer on Jewishness. Judaism is a big part of Jewish culture. Keep in mind. And one could argue, even in light of what Vaush has said, that the differences in understanding of the Torah are part of the wider culture of learning and arguing. So, you know.
But I just have to ask. There's a server, or there's a channel in your server called Drama Posting, if you're aware of it. And you have some contentious takes about AI art. So I just have to ask, when are you going to debate Drama Posting about AI art?
Never. I never want to dignify the subject with a proper debate on my channel, though I've gotten many requests to do so. And I've found that every time people take issue with what I have to say with AI art, it is because they have like a borderline sociopathic inability to understand the purpose of human communication.
What is
like,
ARR?
I get these emails sometimes where people are arguing like there actually is no difference between watching, I don't know, watching like Star Wars and watching like if an AI just like randomly made it with, it's like it's the same, like communication isn't a part of it. It's just images or pixels to view. I can't stand that. But you know, I guess moral anti-realist and all, I can't really objectively prove either point, so I guess I'll just sort of grug rock them and not debate the issue.
Apply the old rock. Yeah, I like that. Okay, so for my second question, I kind of didn't think about it because that was all I really wanted to ask. So I guess I'll just say, 1 second. Can I just get like a second to think?
Oh, go right ahead.
Oh, yes. Sorry, that was it. So you said you liked Spider-Verse, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you are aware that was made with AI, correct?
It's not made with the AI that I talk about when I talk about AI art. I'm okay with algorithms. I mean, I've drawn digitally before, and algorithms are used to do stuff like anti-aliasing, line smoothing, that sort of stuff. The algorithm that they were using, or AI, or whatever you want to call it, was sort of positioning the 2D lines drawn over the 3D models as they moved. I'm okay with stuff like that. It's a tool to be used purposefully by artists. The issue I have is that when I talk about AI art, I'm talking about these generative algorithms that operate on so many levels of abstraction that there's no way to directly control what they produce. You're basically like, it's like dropping a ball down the world's largest pachinko machine with like a billion possible
I mean, that is
outputs,
true.
Even if you can sort of control the means, it's not really a tool. You're sort of like tossing a coin into a wishing well. And I think that level of abstraction destroys the human element.
Okay, that's interesting.
Ras and Terrain, you're up next. Go ahead.
What is wrong with the
Ras.
catapult?
Hello there, can you hear me?
Howdy.
Howdy. A bit nervous here, so I'm going to stumble my words a bit, but here we go. Luckily, I have something written here so I can read upon. So, I've gone ahead and seen your content regarding the necessity of voting blue no matter who on the general election, which I agree upon. You know, it's reasonable. If ranked choice voting is going to be the solution here towards this conundrum under democracy, at least, shouldn't you be a bit more louder, dedicating perhaps a few more videos towards advocating for the solution?
Well, there has to be a good access for it. The problem, honestly, is that like getting rid of first past the post voting is a step, but it's not going to fix the problem in and of itself, because at the end of the day, the American electorate are still confined to a pretty narrow Overton window in terms of viable and acceptable political ideology. I think that it's something I would promote a bit more actively, but at the moment, like with every passing election, it feels like the time to call for it grows more and more distant, you know? Because we keep
I still can get over that answer about Jewish culture. It felt like such a fundamental misunderstanding of what it is. And you hear about the framework and dynamics that defines Judaism and who is Jewish seems completely different from a modern understanding of race. That's right. It is. That's right. It is. Like, keep in mind, I explained why most Jewish people were anti-Zionist. Because most secular Jewish people were against the idea of seeing Jewish people as a nationality. I guess that's the thing that I would like to have a conversation with Vaush about, I guess. My goodness.
The whole fascism problem keeps escalating and escalating and escalating. If we ever had a
I did
period of
not
relative
see that
detente
coming.
or calm or something, where it felt like the nation's major issues were debating, I don't know, like, remember the NAFTA debates? Like, that was a big thing. Like, that's so little compared to what we talk about today in terms of, like, the stakes involved. I hope that one day there will be a time where the American public will consider seriously the value of ranked choice voting. But right now, it just feels like I would just be saying it to say it, you know? It'd be like a virtue signal. Like, here, everyone, you know, look, I'm one of those people who's aware of it and promotes it. I don't know if it would do anything. Maybe I should more, but yeah, I don't know.
I guess we'll see how things play out in that regard.
I really hope it does pan out.
Yeah, me too. Second question in this regarding reaching out to people where they are, for example, I've seen you talk about the necessity of, perhaps, if you have a very conservative place or area, you go ahead and reach out, with the face that they go ahead and recognize. In this case, for example, a white male, for example. In that regard, I am a bit of a lonely person myself, so I do frequent a lot of these circles, and one I see that you are kind of ambivalent because you tend to do your things how you like to do is the VTubing community. So if you don't know anyone, that's fine. I know Zurus, which is a good promoter for politics in that regard, but is there anyone who is, I guess in this case, feminine? That would be in those and that would be promoting leftist values in that community.
I'm afraid
I find it important.
Well, I know aristocracy. I know that Star Panda does VTubing, though in the grand scale of things they're quite small, I think, relative to the big VTubers. I don't know how much space there is for VTubing to break out in a political format, largely because with the greatest respect, I think that a lot of the VTubing community is kind of designed for and oriented around capitulating to male loneliness, gooning, and pedophilia. So that's not all of it, of course. There's plenty of good VTubers. But as a community, I see... Yeah, I don't know. I mean, live streaming, I guess, is primarily defined by XQC type, so maybe it's pretty bad all around. It would be nice to see some, like, really large, politically oriented VTubers, though. I think that'd be pretty cool. And I don't think VTubing is invalid as a medium.
Right, those are my two questions. Thank you very much there, Vaush.
Manuel is deciding to post a question. Vaush, you see the majority or key elements of the Republican Party as racist fascists. Does it worry you that Republicans are making more inroads with more minority voters as seen in the last two elections? Why do you think minority voters are falling to fascism despite you saying Republican politicians uphold a racist system and are generally racist to minorities, thus hurting the same minorities and that are voting Republican?
Well, the easy answer would be because all people, regardless of race, are idiots. But the more complicated answer is that most Republicans aren't knowingly fascist. They're promoting ideals that are fascist, but they're not cognitively, they're not ideologically fascist. Likewise, it's the case with racism. There are plenty of racists in the Republican Party, and I mean like overt racists, or people who believe in racism, but I'd be willing to bet the majority of Republican Party voters are people who actually do believe the narrative pushed by the party. It's not as though Donald Trump goes up there and says, I'm a racist, I'm perfect, whatever. There are still elements of subtlety and dog whistling, as transparent as they may be. Keep in mind, the majority of minorities, by far, vote Democrat. I mean, white people are the most likely to vote Republican. If we just had minorities voting in these elections, it would be a Democrat sweep across the country easily. There's been a gain with Latin voters down in the South. I think a lot of that is because, A, they don't like Biden, which is complicated, but not entirely invalid. And B, I think that a lot of Latin immigrants, people who came here legally, from Mexico or Honduras or whatever, don't like being lumped in with what they consider to be the people who are taking the easy way in, the illegal immigrants. I think they're kind of doing like a pick-me thing a little bit, where they're thinking like, well, I don't want to be lumped in with that group of people. I'm going to show how much I reject this behavior by not voting for those Democrats, I think that's a dumb idea, but I think it's not... I don't think it's like minorities are like throwing their arms up and going, well, I'm a fascist racist now, It's, as always, there's a lot of complexity behind why demographics of people vote for anything that are always a bit more nuanced than just like the rote ideology of the party.
Next, we're going to go ahead and have our lovely Scribbles, otherwise known as Gold Digger in their name. Go ahead, Gold Digger, aka Scribbles.
Hi, Vaush.
Howdy.
Nice to. Hi there. Okay, thanks for coming to the server. Big grab, big grab. So I have a question for you. What is your view on like Dusty? Wait, can I curse or no?
Yeah, as long as it ain't slurs.
Oh, beautiful. What's your view on like dusty ass men who are like crying about like, oh, these women are gold diggers, these women are like shisty, these women ain't shit, all that bullshit, right? Because they like want a certain class of men, right? Because like, I don't know, like you see all these like, I don't know, like red pillars, whatever, who are like saying all this BS. And it's like, dude, you mid, like you're absolutely mid, and you'll go for girls who are like, you know, also more attractive than you, women who are like educated and all that stuff, right? And it's just like, I don't know. I just want like your view on it, and like, what's your view on like these like, they're not like obviously not incels, right? They like, they like smash whatever. Sorry, I almost said a no word. They smash whatever, but it's like, but you're like spiritually incel, and that's like my view on it.
I think that there are women who have unreasonable expectations when it comes to guys' income, though I think that this proportion of women are heavily overstated online, because there are these podcasts full of like 40 IQ men who will go onto the street and pay women $100 to be dumbasses on their pod and say, yeah, I wouldn't date a guy unless he made at least 500K. Isn't that like the average income? Like, I think that shit is heavily blown up, and it's largely blown up in incel communities where they want to reaffirm the belief that all women are gold-digging whores.
Okay.
I also don't blame women, by the way, for wanting a guy who has a higher income, because let's face it, right? Like, A, the economy's tough, and B, I don't like the fact that, like, the same people who think that men should be out there, like, on their grind set, and women should be getting, like, pregnant and barefoot in the home, are then the ones who complain that women are like pre-selecting on income. It's just the hypocrisy of the system or whatever. It's incelly. I agree.
No, yeah, but like I think I have like a pretty like, basic view on it, right? Like you want a man who makes like a.
So the next question we're gonna.
Good luck.
I just want to get to as many people as possible. Nothing against you, Scribbles. I love you.
Jesus.
We all love you, Scribbles.
Anyway. From Biodrug, if you were to create a very short video in which you had to distill your message while incorporating key concepts of philosophies of left-wing ideology, what message would you choose to persuade younger men, and why?
It would have to be about the myth of meritocracy. I can't do it right now, of course, but I would try to hit, if I had like 60 seconds or something, I would try to hit the idea of like, things are worse than they used to be. We don't have what we deserve, and we are trying hard. Why don't we have these things? Well, this, and that. And you would talk about how, like, okay, well, the rug's been pulled out from under us, you know? Because young men feel a lot of despair at the world today, and I don't blame them for that, right? Like, not just, like, even the incel types or whatever. I mean, a lot of incels act ridiculous, but, like, dating apps fucking suck. And we all know for a fact that, like, the economy's getting worse and worse for every successive younger generation. Like, nobody's owning a home anymore. Even I don't want to own a home. Like, even that, like, it's ridiculous disparity in opportunity, and you have to hit on that, and you have to make people understand that the solution to this is not returning to tradition or whatever. Tradition is what caused this. All of the problems we're facing right now are a direct byproduct of the economic models that we set out in like the Reagan era, and prior to that in like the 1940s, when we spread out and suburbanized all over the country, and therefore like set out from the, you know, how humans were meant to live in communities. We don't need to return to tradition. We need to listen to the critiques of these systems that have existed for hundreds of years. But I wouldn't say all that. I'd say it real short and smooth. Like, you want to appeal to people's insecurities, but in a constructive way, because I mean, a lot of those insecurities are valid. You want to propose good solutions. Something that feels right.
Okay, and for our next questioner will be Q.
What's good slime? I'm Henny. I'm a recovering meth addict. I have a question regarding substances, if you're comfortable with that.
Go right ahead, and congratulations on your recovery.
Have you ever drank a frosty boysenberry-infused acorn bisque out of a duly stacked styrofoam chalice? And if not, would you ever consider doing so?
No and no. I don't know what that is, but I think it would kill me. I get heartburn if I drink even a sip of soda.
It's also called gecko cum, but that's usually like the street name.
It would probably instantly kill me.
All right, thank you. God bless Ziva and the Ziva party line. Shout out to
Okay, we're gonna move on.
Good
Next
luck,
person. This is a written question from Blue Q saying, "What does Vaush think is more important, moral questions and answers, or practical ones?"
I don't think they're extricable.
Damn.
If a solution proposed is impractical and can't work, then focusing on it detracts from a potential solution. It hurts. That's why I get frustrated when people are impractical. I mean, it's like an ideological purity thing, right? Like the correct answer to every question as a leftist is, well, it would be fixed under communism. And is this true? Yes, of course. Communism will fix everything. Obviously, it's that simple. But we're not there. So some effort has to be put into the means by which we arrive at that point. And if the solutions proposed don't help in that process, then you're not fixing anything, right? It's the easy thing. It's the easy solution. So I don't think there's a difference, really. I mean, if I spend my time arguing with impractical solutions quite a lot, I think that's the big problem with the left, even. Liberals may be dull-minded and inexpressive and simple, but they are practical, at least within their own means. I think that we could take a little bit of that pragmatism for ourselves, be a bit more effective towards our own ends.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and move on to August.
So my question for Vaush is, you know waifus, right?
I think you would like
I've
a
heard
game
of
called
the,
Phenotopia on
Okay.
stream.
So
Interesting.
do you think that if somebody actually married a waifu, like would it be valid, do you think?
You mean, so you mean like an anime girl, but in concept?
Yeah. Or a husbando, if that works too.
I mean, I don't put much stock in marriage as an institution, but I have to say I would be pretty concerned for the well-being and social acclimation of a person who made that decision. You know, there are lots of real cute 3D girls out there, I gotta say. You know, with the colored hair and the wacky outfits and everything. I believe in a better future, where we all have an IRL waifu that we can marry.
Yeah, I have one.
Base?
But she's from an anime.
Oh, well, I'm glad you're
But
happy.
she's real.
Oh, that's good too.
All right, and then as for the next question we're going to have is Feet Master. Go ahead, Feet Master. The floor is yours to ask a question.
What do you think, like the interpretation of like history has had on like the general politics, at least in America?
Interpretation of history, what? I'm afraid you're speaking quietly.
I'm sorry about that. Like the interpretation of history, what effect has it had on like politics in America? Like, yeah, just in general.
Well, that's pretty broad. I mean, it's essential. You know, people are inspired to make changes in large part based on the narratives that we've told about our past. That's why for basically all of American history, every major step forward or backward we've taken as a country has to be rooted in some kind of imagined American legacy. Even back when the country was formed, we were talking about, you know, as our existence a colony in England and so on and so forth. That's why it's so important that we have a good understanding of and control over what elements of history are taught. I don't think that we should be disingenuous about it. I think we should be forthcoming because, of course, a proper telling of history is a history of class struggle. It's almost impossible to understand the world without viewing it through that lens, even as a non-Marxist. So, yeah, I would say it's absolutely pivotal.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next person, who is going to be Jims. Go ahead, Jims. The floor is yours.
Hello, Vaush. How are you doing today?
Vaush.
Good as always. Howdy.
How
That's good
were
to
you
hear.
always?
So I have just one question, of course, but I only had one from the start. And that question is, would you please box Sam Hyde in the future?
Hello, Moose Watcher.
No, I would lose. Wait, absolutely, are you kidding me? Hold on, you save that crap for Hassan, okay? Hassan's got 2 inches on me and he's way more built. What is it? What contest would there be for me, okay? I'll box weak, frail women. Wheelchairs, crutches, that's the ballpark I'm talking about, okay?
All right. So
Sam
do you
Hyde,
think
good
you
lord,
could
he's like a gorilla. He's huge.
Yeah. Do you think you could beat my autistic little sister in a fight?
Absolutely, I think I could. You can
All
tell her
right,
that too.
All right, I'll be sure to.
Have a wonderful day.
You too. You too.
Take care.
Okay, it looks like we just got Eliza Lee back.
Can I be
Eliza,
heard?
are you there? Yep, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, cool. Okay, it's Eliza Lee from chat. I know you told us not to join and ask
Still
the questions,
upset.
but mine's a good one, okay?
Hit me up.
They said good.
Okay, media literacy is dead. People cops are watching The Punisher and thinking that it's about them. People are
Oh my
liking
God.
Homelander. Nobody knows anything about what's being written. Remember how you mentioned this once?
That
Marx
is so
didn't
rough.
like stories that were very simplistic about the union fights the capitalists and wins, and because he thought it was too simplistic. My thought was, is it almost a necessary
I need a quick toilet visit. I need to calm myself down. If you enjoy this, then throw me a dono. I'll be right back. I'm back. Oh, it's not a suit. It's a coat sort of thing. It's not a suit. All right. Whew. Let's go.
Publicity sometimes because people are so media illiterate that they'll read into it improperly if you are too subtle.
I would agree with what you are saying, that unsubtlety is not necessarily the same as bad writing. I think a good example that everyone can point to where things are simultaneously completely unsubtle but also good would be Tarantino films. It is you would have to be brain damaged to walk away from Django without an understanding that slavery is bad, certainly as presented in the movie's message is pretty clear on that. But people like Django, you know, because it is unsubtle and aware of it. It's not pretentious. Most of Tarantino's films are like that. There are lots of films like that. The Iron Giant is subject to some misinterpretation, but I think it's generally considered to be, you know, pretty unsubtle. There were a lot of liberal narratives about, like, overcoming monarchy or despotism that are quite unsubtle. I think, for example, it's pretty difficult to read, like, a right-wing narrative into The Last Airbender. Steven Universe is dripping with gay, so, of course, that one's pretty unsubtle as well, and it's social, you know.
There you go.
But yeah, I agree. I think it is okay to lean into it. And the difference between deliberately unsubtle and preachy is how rock hard you are when you're writing the scene, in my opinion.
I have made a decision.
We just have to try harder.
Oh, but that's bad because I'm always like that whenever I write any scene.
The decision with
Then you're getting it, and you'll get it.
Damien, I'm going to invite you right now. All right, come on up, Damien.
It's time, gigglers.
Hello, Vaush.
Hello,
I'm a
Vaush.
Viewers, been watching since
I was born.
Around the Ukrainian war invasion, you know?
Howdy.
A couple years ago. My question was, what are your thoughts on meta politics? Do you think they're useful, and do we need more awareness about them?
Okay, so I've heard meta politics used in a few ways. I would like a follow-up reference.
That person sounds like a Redditor.
Politics from a background and analyzing every individual.
Maybe it will sound like I'm, I don't know, stereotyping, but that person sounds a bit like a Redditor.
Ideology, even our own.
This seems like one of those things that has a lot of value in an academic space and probably less so in an advocacy space. I think that right now the real political struggle is one for simplification. The right has landed on very simple, incorrect narratives that they push time and time again, relentlessly. And I think that we struggle with this because the truth doesn't necessarily have to be simple, whereas a lie always can be. I think that our primary focus right now should be on taking what we have and trying to find ways to distill it, to make it palatable. And that's a public work. Of course, in the academic space, certainly it can be valuable to look at things that way.
Okay, I think that's a good analysis.
Next, we're going to go ahead and move on to Rally. And by the way, I was just told that Red Lemon has fixed the problem and will be returning. Go ahead, Rally, and Red Lemon, you're next.
Oh, okay. So I here's my question for you. You know, I'm a fan, of course. Well, you don't know that. So I've run into a problem because I'm like you. I like arguing with people. Like when I argue with certain people, they're like their main thing is religious, like their spiritual beliefs behind them. So like they arrive at a conclusion because they believe a higher power or because of spiritual mysticism, like it says it should be that way. Like what would you encountering people like that, and especially in electoral politics, how would you deal with that?
I'm generalizing a little bit here, but in my experience, oftentimes when people who believe in a deity arrive at a religiously oriented conclusion, they're using religion as a way of justifying something they already wanted to arrive at. You know, people very rarely pick up the Bible, look at it, close it, and then change everything about their life immediately because they realized they were wrong and their teachings weren't in line. You know, no wealthy man picked up, saw that it would be more difficult for them to enter heaven than a camel through the eye of a needle, and then just gave all their money away. People usually interpret stuff like that in ways that support and metaphysically justify stuff they already believed. And at that point, then, I think the goal should be to make them not believe those things. Usually there's an underlying emotional reason, not necessarily a logical one, because if there was a logical reason, they wouldn't have to rely on a religious justification.
Usually
if they're
emotional.
leaning in towards
we are
a
more
conclusion,
emotional than,
you know, maybe with regards to accepting gay identity or whether or not it's right or wrong to do this or that, I think it's good to kind of probe them a bit, talk with them. There might be a reason they believe those things outside of the religious justification. Talk with them about that, and, you know, maybe they'll soften up. Though it'll take time, because the whole point of this is the metaphysical justification, right? Like, they're not going to just go, oh, wait, you're right, my scripture reading was incorrect. It's a difficult process.
Okay, you should do D&D streams again. That's not a question, it's a statement.
Of course.
Invite to speak, Dragonfly. Go ahead, Dragonfly.
But I don't think there's anything wrong with emotionality.
As someone who was,
But it also has a
involved in
non-emotional
third-party
element to it as
stuff,
well.
like a
Keep
couple
that in
years
mind.
ago. How would you suggest removing people from its vile influence?
People who are in third parties are definitely, like, by default populist, because otherwise they would be in with the mainline party that better represents them. I think it's important to direct people's populism in a positive direction, because the main thing that
It's
directs a
not
lot of
good
people
to
here,
hate
they don't want to be
emotion.
cucked, is the thing.
That's for sure.
Populists really don't like, you know, squaring their shoulders and saying, all right, time to vote for the Dems again. It's frustrating. It feels like you're contributing to an interminably, you know, locked in process, like you're making it worse even. I think you have to find constructive outlets for that populism. I've noticed a lot of third-party voters are people who actually do very little extra electoral advocacy. Like, they don't tend to go to protests, they don't tend to go to, like, picket lines, they don't tend to do, like, strike fund stuff or any of that, because if they had those outlets, I think it would be easier for them to conceptualize the vote as just one tiny part of a very broad political
That's
project.
true.
Without that, you know, maybe they think they don't have any choices other than to vote third party.
Fair enough.
Okay. And so Red Lemon actually has typed his question out. After Dragonfly, we're going to move on to Bamboozled, but first I will ask this question.
I should have called in.
Perspective on masculinity. Recently, discourse around the topic has increasingly been taken over by the quote red pill unquote movement. Is more traditional masculinity something that has to be completely abandoned, or can the positive aspects be salvaged without the negative characteristics?
I think we need to think of it beyond the dynamic of traditional versus new masculinity, because both of those terms can refer to each other, right? Like, if you want to, you can say that a person who works every day at a tech company is soy because they're cucking themselves out of a family life. They're not spending time with their family. You know, they're a new male. They're a beta. Actually, working like 100 hours a week isn't traditional masculine virtue. But you could hit it either way if you wanted to, right? The problem is, when we say traditional versus new male, what we really mean is, like, how are we narrativizing the differences between how men can behave? I think that we should do things that are good and not do things that are bad. Men should do things that make them happy. But we can't lie to ourselves by telling ourselves narratives about how, like, people were so happy.
But what if things that make a person happy are hurtful things?
Like that? No, they weren't. No, they weren't. Remove from your mind any delusion that 100 or 150 or 500 years ago, the average person was happier than they are now. I swear to you, they were not. And a lot of that was due to really unreasonable social dynamics. What do men want today? Well, I think men want
also makes
a
us
lot
human,
of the same
keep
stuff
in
as
mind.
women,
Emotions
in terms of,
makes
like,
us
happiness
human.
and acclamation, being social,
make us
engaging
human.
with people around them, feeling purposeful, feeling like they
So
make a
without
difference,
emotions,
having
it would
friends,
not be
right?
worth it, in my
In
opinion.
terms of specific masculine virtues, you know,
We'd
if
just
you
be
want a
robots.
guy to act more masculine, or if you as a guy want to be, I think that's totally fine, as long as you're not hurting yourself or others. There's tons of valuable attributes in that direction. Strength and discipline, fortitude, self-reliance, these things can all be great if done well. But I wouldn't think of that as being traditional. I would just think of that as being good. Because as soon as you start thinking of it in that, axis, I think it's a bit more constructive.
And next we have Bamboozled. Bamboozled, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Hello?
Howdy.
Is my mic okay?
Yes.
All right. I'm from Turkey. I'm not a native English speaker, so I might speak slower a bit. Anyways. And yes, Turkey, the country you hate. Anyways. So, Turkey has a really nationalistic education system. It drills down in your head the nationalistic tendencies since the day you were born, kinda. And I'm really interested in the Turkey's history and fascist government 100 years ago. But now today's Turkey's viewpoint has shifted towards more Islamic tendencies. And I'm not really sure how that will affect Kurdish population, because Kurdish population is in majority Muslim, and they are still just calling them terrorists. And I just wanted to hear your opinions.
What's the question?
I think that Turkey is in a difficult position right now.
True.
Because
That's for
they are
sure.
trying to both sides the multipolar world. Turkey is aware of the fact that if it cozied up entirely to the West, it would not only lose out on relevance and potential allyship, but would also not be treated as well as the Western European countries are, because the West is heavily white supremacist and would gear its interest and support largely towards majority white countries, which Turkey is definitely not. Likewise, Turkey can't shift entirely over to appeasing Russian, Chinese, or pan-Arab interests because A, there are severe disagreements within those groups, and B, they're a lot poorer than we are. So I think that the hyper-nationalist angle is basically a way of cementing people's faith in the project. You don't want people to sort of shiftlessly dance over towards Western identity or towards like a broader Islamic identity. You want people to be Turkish. This is not sustainable, unfortunately. Hyper-nationalism can compensate for like international fractures for a time, but I don't think it's working. I mean, Turkey's suffering from a lot of internal strife. Obviously, its buildings aren't up to code, and there's a lot of internal corruption, which got a ton of attention after that the recent tragic earthquake. And additionally, the insistence on alienating and continuing to scapegoat the Kurds reveals a sort of national weakness, a need for a narrative, a need for fear. Not to even speak of the inflation rate. I think you're right to be worried about the future of your country, but I do think that there's a better road. Erdogan will eventually leave or die of old age or whatever, and when that happens, I hope that Turkey can assert its unique geopolitical situation in a way that doesn't rely on ultranationalism. Because if it does so, I think a lot of these problems will ease up.
I mean, ultranationalism.
Thank you for your answer.
fascism,
I
of
think so
course.
too. I just hate hyper-nationalism.
Good luck, and take care.
Next, we have
Thank
V. V, you are already on the stage. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hey, Vaush, what's going on, man? Thanks for being here.
My pleasure. Howdy.
So I was just kind of funny the other week. I got in a lot of trouble in your server for discussing the issue of conscription, and I'm curious to ask the man himself, what do you think? Ever acceptable, justifiable, nuanced views?
Yeah, it can be sometimes. Like 99% of the time when conscription is used, it's not. I think that conscription is justifiable in instances
I
where
think
your country
having a
is
professional
facing
army
a threat
is
severe
better.
enough that a military failure would incur harm equal to or greater than the conscription itself. Like for instance, not that I do not support Israel, but to use them as an example, right? Like if they were about to be swallowed by Saudi Arabia or something, conscription in that case would be like, well, if we lose this conflict, like we lose everything. So I guess, well, they have conscription there. They have their mandatory service, so that does make sense to an extent. Likewise with South Korea. In Ukraine right now, I think that their
think
conscription
the
is justifiable.
professional army
It's
model
not
is better.
great. I don't like it, but I don't like a lot of stuff involved in war. On the other side of things, obviously, Russia's conscription is completely unjustifiable because they're not doing it to defend themselves.
True.
They're doing
They're
it
doing
to
to
conquer
attack.
other territory. But I think that a conscription, even in self-defense, can be bad. It's tough to get that one right.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I largely agree. Thanks for taking my question.
Of course.
Very
Take care.
well. And next we have Kraut again. Go ahead, Kraut. Ask your question.
Oh my God.
Hello, Vaush. Long time no see. How are
Howdy.
you doing?
Yeah, it has been a while. I'm doing well. How about you?
Why
Still
are
fat,
you
though.
fat?
Could complain, but who'd listen? Anyways, my question to you is as follows. How do you justify that it's possible on your server to post nudes without you having any sort of age verification in place, especially in connection with things you've said in the past about CP and age of consent?
You mean people posting nudes in the nude section of the Discord server that you have to be verified by the mods to get into?
Well, Q-Chat for giving me false information, and I guess thanks for answering the question.
This is what you're coming at me with. Okay. All right.
All right. Moving back to the audience.
I see.
Hey.
We're going to go ahead and move on to Lemon.
I was
Okay,
so
hey, Vaush,
weak.
I had a question for you. So recently there has been, up through gay marriage, we saw an increasing acceptance of LGBTQ rights among conservatives, liberals, and independents in the mid-2010s. However, recently we've seen a reversal. It's mostly among conservatives, it seems. Is this because of purely because the liberal messaging around LGBTQ rights has not worked? Or
I think it's
is there any
because
broad societal trends?
I just think that the conservatives feel braver about their true beliefs and more open about it. But
has there been a failure on the left, or is this just conservatives have seemed to have more broadly turned off to the LGBTQ community?
To clarify, you're asking if there's been a downward trend in queer acceptance?
Among conservatives. So overall, we saw from 2010 to around I think it was 2016, 2017, we saw an overall increase on all demographics. Conservatives, liberals, independents became more accepting of LGBTQ people in poll after poll, and we eventually to the point where gay marriage was relatively accepted by all by all people of all political persuasions, at least among conservatives, liberals, and independents.
I'm not so
However,
sure,
in the
to be
last year
honest.
or two,
I'm not so sure.
We've seen LGBTQ acceptance go down, but mostly among conservatives.
I just think
not among
conservatives
other
were
groups.
quite
So I'm just wondering.
The right has shifted into using queer issues as a focal point for the culture war. I mean, we had back in the lead up to 2015 with Obergefell, of course. It was more significant from the right. But then after gay marriage became the law of the land, there was a shift away from that for a time, where there was kind of like a grasping at political positions. The main one for conservatives was abortion, of course, which has been the case for decades. But after gay marriage became, legal nationwide, that was like the main thing they could focus on. But now, obviously, over the past few years, they have shifted heavily into making queer issues the primary focal point. Notice how after they literally revoked Roe v. Wade, something that they've been talking about doing for decades and decades, it barely even made a difference. Like, it genuinely didn't affect much about their messaging. There was no big, round of applause. There was no, oh my God, we finally did it. Because at this point, it's almost been made irrelevant.
Yeah,
if anything, I would say it's been made a
It's
weakness
that,
because
yeah.
so many people are actually in favor of pro-choice policies when they're the ones who are pregnant or when it's someone they know. So they're doubling down on the queer issues, but it's temporary. Their loss is guaranteed. They're fighting against human nature. They will lose, and then in a generation or two, they will all be gay.
Okay,
that's true.
Thanks.
Of course.
That is true.
Next, we have Ortimer. Ortimer, you are already on stage. Go ahead with your question.
Okay, so I've argued with a lot of people on your subreddit about this, and I wanted your take. So I think that the Just Stop Oil protests, specifically the blocking traffic, are net negative for climate activism because of their overwhelmingly negative public reaction. Now, their supporters say that it's justified, giving the impending climate apocalypse.
We're gonna sleep soon.
That
I
nearly
think.
anything would be
I just
justified.
want to beat this level.
So, if anything is justified in the name of climate activism, would I be morally justified in putting on blackface and shouting racial slurs at random people in the street? And would that be effective?
Well, you don't need to sell me on that one. If you're willing to go out there. No,
Jesus.
I think what we're talking about fundamentally is what the goal of advocacy is. Usually the goal of advocacy is to win people over to your side. But that's not always the case. The Black Panther Party, for example, was not exactly winning over the hearts and minds of whites across the nation. Their main goal was to scare people. Following police cars with guns drawn, showing up outside of courthouses, guns held upwards. Their goal was, well, they knew they were going to make people angry, but they didn't care. I think the problem right now is that we are so when it comes to climate change, and nothing is happening, and nobody's taking it seriously, that I think you could make a fair argument, and I think Just Stop Oil is that the goal should not be to win people over, because
It's
it
tomorrow,
doesn't even seem possible.
and we're gonna be
like Al Gore was doing this
discussing
25 years
some
ago.
more
You know,
history,
like the science has been out
as
there
always.
for decades. What
I'll prepare a
logical
special
argument is gonna
topic
win
for
people over?
tomorrow.
At this point, the goal
It's
is
not
just to
decided
make it
yet,
a headline
but
as much
we will
as
decide
possible.
soon.
No matter how irritating or unlikable you are, if you are putting the subject of climate change in the newspaper headline, you are doing the thing they want you to do. Now, I don't necessarily think that's always the best option because, of course, not all attention is good attention, but I guess they've taken kind of like an accelerationist attitude towards the advocacy side of things. And honestly, given the fact that nothing else has worked, I think it might be the right move. Like, they are acting in a hateable fashion, but they're also getting the headlines. Maybe that's the most that can be done in an environment where people are so uncaring.
All right, thank you. I'm already putting on my shoe polish. So
good luck. Have a good time.
Ready.
Next, we're going to go ahead and move on to SV Point. SV Point, you're already on stage, so feel free to say your question.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to. Christ, I've never actually done this before. I'm from your chat. I started watching your streaming like I think like
10
during
years
COVID.
ago.
I was originally like a Noah Samson fan, but like more to your side now because like of all the Professor Flowers
Okay.
whole thing.
Yeah, I will be talking about
I was
Bund more in
wondering,
the future.
what is keeping you from playing the game No More Heroes?
I just played I just played Hi-Fi Rush. I feel like I'm double dipping. Isn't Hi-Fi Rush just the better new version of No More Heroes? I should though. I should. The first game's been on my list for a long time.
It is I kind of, when you played Hi-Fi Rush, I kind of like saw like the similarities, but like in No More Heroes, there's like a very nice soundtrack, like especially in the second ones and the games after that. But along with that, I can see you laughing. I understand how I sound. Very sorry.
I think it's delightful and I appreciate it. I do want to play the first one, maybe on stream.
On stream, huh?
Thank you. I don't
Go
think I have
ahead
any more
and
questions.
move on to the Big Cigarette. Go ahead. The question's
They won
up
that
to you.
debate.
Hello, hello, Vaush.
Howdy.
Vaush.
I apologize. I was coughing. I didn't mean to interrupt anyone on stream when you're debating. I apologize for that.
Not at all.
And in addition to my question, I had a video game recommendation for you to play on stream.
Whatever order you prefer.
What do you think about
I don't
Crab
know.
Champions?
Crab Champions?
I think either that or Crab Champion. It's the video game made by the Crab Rave guy. First-person crab shooter.
Did Donkey play this? I'm afraid I have no opinion on this specific subject. But maybe I'll develop one as I Google it. Ah, yes, I think I have seen Donkey play this, or at least somebody Donkey adjacent. 10 out of 10 on Steam, my goodness.
PC only, but my...
Yeah, I'll take it to heart.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move on. Go ahead, Juan. Ask your question.
Can you hear me well?
Yes. Howdy.
Oh, hey. All right, hey, Vaush, howdy. My name is Juan. Sorry if I'm a little nervous since I'm not particularly accommodated to doing public speaking, but I've been watching you for a long time. A little glazing before I ask you my question. I've been watching you since about the Sekiro stream. That was a long, long time ago.
Yes, it was.
Well, let me get to the point. So I have a question. Hold on, I have it written down here. So I hope that I was originally going. It was a bit of a two-parter, but they changed the rule on that. So I just hope that you understand the like what's being referred to, so that way there's not like a what does that mean sort of situation. But My question for you is, so out of all my disagreements with you, I think this question kind of summarizes or gets to like the point of like your core ideology. So how does your like vote blue no matter who sort of philosophy and like tactic compare to like the Stalinist policy of like the Popular Front in terms of like the approaches and political alliances and ideological flexibility? You know, there's a lot of similarities in between like these two things that I don't think you're very like aware of. So I just wanted to ask you, like, do you not see like what is your? I guess what I'm getting at is like,
I'm
do
too
you
upset
think, like,
for
you
jokes
kind of
right now.
have more similarities with like those strands than you actually like see yourself as having?
I don't believe so. When I say vote blue no matter who, I don't say so to destroy ideological nonconformity. I do it because
what the hell?
as the system exists currently, you can only really get a Republican or a Democrat president. That's the only choice we have. And as long as that's the choice we have, there is a correct answer.
Okay, hold on. My apologies. I didn't mean to cut you off. I know you were in the middle of the question, but I guess like the Popular Front doesn't really refer to like voting blue no matter who, but like Popular Front is like putting aside like class struggle in terms of like supporting like the Liberal Party, which is pretty much what you support, right? Or would you say that's like a good description of like what you support?
Well, I don't believe it's putting aside class struggle. I don't think that the class struggle is in any way negated by a Democrat victory. If anything, I think it's enhanced. It's a lot easier to be a socialist in a liberal democracy than it is to be a socialist in a fascist dictatorship. But no, I don't think it's a matter of like ideological compromise.
It's okay.
I think it's just a small, unfortunate, but necessary choice that we have to make, and we do a small part to a broader conclusion, sure. But you know, again, I do think it's much easier for us.
I do remember one joke from the Isaac Bashevis Singer book. Okay, prepare yourself. It's actually a poop joke. Okay, so a man agreed to a dare or a bet to eat a bowl full of poop. So he started eating the poop from the little thing, and after a while of eating, he suddenly started coughing and vomiting, and the person that dared him to do it asks, "What happened?" And the person responded, "I found a hair." There we go. It sounds much better in Polish, but you know, there is the joke.
It's under the Democrats.
Okay. I mean, I still disagree, and I wish we could discuss it more, but my time is up. So thank you. And a quick horse joke. Quit horsing around. My friends wanted me to make a horse joke. All right, bye.
You did a great job.
Thank you. We're going to go ahead and move on to Carl Max. Go ahead, Carl Max.
Hello. Hi, Vaush.
Howdy.
I've been in your community for a while. We've
10
interacted
years.
a couple times. I like your streams a lot.
Thank you.
I
And
think
yes,
you're
I
a very
remember.
good advocate. Yay, that's nice. Okay, so my question for you, because I just started streaming myself, is I know you've been asked this question a lot, but I wanted to know, what do you think the best way is to like grow for streaming, and has your like advice on
I have
that
to
changed
listen
over
to
the
the
years, given
advice.
how like the landscape of streaming
Now I
has
have to
changed?
listen to this advice.
Not too much. It's mostly about boring stuff like search engine optimization, making sure that you keep contacts with people and insert yourself in the right places at the right time. Make sure the messages that you're giving are
There you go. Let's listen
novel
some,
enough
you
that
static.
people would specifically defer to you for your answers. You want to provide more than just a set of positions. You want to be a personality. Streaming is all
I'm a
personality.
personality.
Unlike any other media, you
True,
have to
I'm
be
a personality, right?
for people
Am
to follow you,
I?
certainly to watch your live streams, to tune in at a reliable time. And I think, some people will be for that and some people won't. And it's definitely not a meritocracy. It's a lot of it's luck based. But it's pretty fun. It's worth at least dipping your toes into if you can.
Okay, I think I can do that. All right, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Have a nice AMA.
Okay, Aaron, go ahead.
No hair, like
with your
a
question.
single hair.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Not a
Vaush, big
rabbit,
fan. Kind
a
of
hare.
new. I mean, you have quite a catalog. I haven't seen all of it, but someone else mentioned it'd be cool if you did D&D streams again.
He's saying what I've
anyway,
been saying.
huge
I
respect for.
We're still gonna
just your
make an
general
anti-Vaush
refusal
video.
to back down to online bullies and criticism to some of what people consider hot takes. Someone else mentioned some hot takes that you've had before, but specifically to you openly stating that you've masturbated to child, would you say that you're like a proud pedophile, or you're like
What?
you want to get better, or like where are you on the map?
What?
If you're going to make stuff
Unintended.
up about me, then why not make it more ostentatious? Like say
I
that
mean,
I
there's
took like a
literally
sex
a
trip
video.
to-
You said that you masturbated to Lollipop and then felt guilty at the end.
I don't recall that, but you can make up more.
I'll
I mean,
send
you
you
could
the
be
video.
interested with it.
Would you like me to send the
You wanna
video
send me
of you
child
saying that? No, the video of you saying it. Of course, I'm not going to send you child pornography.
Archived videos do you have of child pornography?
Are you not listening to what I'm saying? I'm saying videos of you speaking.
Speaking?
Yes.
Well, like on my channel. I've got a lot of those.
Yes.
Wait, I don't need more of
Yes.
those.
Well, you're denying a video that exists.
Am I?
There's a huge catalog of you defending child, saying it's morally
Mhm.
okay and all that stuff.
How much do
and
you
then
collect? He's like browsing through his folder. There isn't. You know, obviously this has all been discussed and litigated to a point
Well,
a billion times over. But
there is.
usually
I'll post.
when people
I'll
are,
post.
You free
Oh,
to.
boy.
Usually when people are
Thank
terrified
you.
of my positions, they fall back into excuses not to listen. Though few are weird enough to actually try to talk with me about it.
We're going to go ahead and move on over to culture shock.
Browsing through my giant folder of CP, the one labeled Vaush looked at this.
So here's a culture shock. Here it says, "Is
Oh
the
shit!
Democratic
Wait, I'm sorry. Wait, I think I just realized what he was referring to. He was lying, but I think he was referring to something inaccurately. There was a old video, like really early in my streaming, where I said that anime porn is infested with lolicon, and that like just looking through those sites, like you're inundated with it constantly or something like that. That's totally true, by the way. That shit needs to be like locked down massively. It's insane. People talk about hentai like it's just a normal site. And then it's like, oh wait, well if you don't specifically filter it out, like 2/3 of results are lolly shit, you know? So that's pretty bad.
So here we got the next question is the Democratic Party becoming pro-black in a similar way to how the Republican Party is pro-white? Why are white supremacists often Republican and black supremacists often Democrat? Before your answer, I would like to give more context.
Oh.
The first thing I could point out is how both political parties use race as a recruitment tool. The Democratic Party is affiliated with BLM and discriminates against Asians and white students via affirmative action in higher university for the benefit of black students. The Republican Party uses great replacement theory and etc. This is from Culture Shock. This is not me speaking.
Just
Just clarifying. Go ahead.
Black supremacists are not Democrats. Trust
This is
me,
not
I'll argue
me.
with them. Black supremacists are almost always like black separatists or like
Oh, boy.
pan-Arabists or something. There isn't really like a political space for black supremacy in America, and for the few black supremacists I've met who are American and talk about American issues, they're Republicans. Black supremacists and white supremacists historically get along with each other because they have a shared goal of removing black people from America. Black supremacists are usually separatists in the sense that they want to move over to
Horrible.
Africa, and white supremacists will be like, oh yeah, great idea. Like, I'm pretty sure the current head of the Nation of Islam, Luis Farrakhan, is literally like an honorary KKK member. So, no,
Jesus.
there's not really an equivocacy here. The real question is, like, are parties using unjustified racial anxieties as a focal point for recruitment? And both parties do use racial anxieties, to be sure. Republicans refer to white people's fear of great replacement and being racially conquered. Democrats refer to the black racial anxiety of being mistreated by the police. The problem is that black people are mistreated by the police and white people aren't actually at threat of genocide. So
Right.
in the face of that stark contrast, I would say that, you know, it's really a matter of whether or not the racial messaging is legitimate, justified, or dangerous. And there's nothing really dangerous about supporting BLM. I mean, if anything, it's anti-danger. You'd be supporting reforms to the police that make Americans safer.
Okay, and as for our next question, we have Jamie Wacker. Jamie Wacker, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi,
Vaush.
I'm a little nervous.
Howdy.
Sorry.
I'm more nervous.
For context, I live in Mexico, which is the country below the USA.
Thank you. I'm an American. I need that.
Yeah, I know. That's why I mentioned it. And lately
goodness.
in the news, due to like the new books that we're having nowadays, I'm seeing some sort of like shift in like politics in the country that are like more akin to American politics. Like usually politics in Mexico are like basically South Park libertarians, like, yeah, well, whatever would make the kid happy, right? And then the U.S. is pretty much, yeah,
Black
let's just
supremacists are usually
kill all
right-wing,
the
I
gay
think,
people.
yeah.
So I guess my question here is, how can I, or I guess a group of people, can stop like this spread of like American type politics in like countries where, you know, our right-wing politicians aren't basically fascists?
Yeah, it's really like I'm
It's
sorry.
tough.
American conservative politics are being exported across the globe. Like
True,
the
to
term
Poland
woke,
as
that was
well.
an African American slang term for a person like familiar with racial dynamics, and then it got co-opted by the right. And now just a few years later, you have like German conservatives going about Das Volken and French, you know, Les
My
Woke, or
God.
what, like like it's spread everywhere. And that's
It
of
did
course because when
in
we
Poland
talk
as
about
well.
which side of the aisle is
Excuse me. We have something. One of like
El
the big
Woco.
like El Woco. No, something funny that is happening, and I want you to like know this as like a context. Like one of like our big like conservative Christians politicians that we have here in Mexico are
So,
calling
Jamie, I hate
like.
to interrupt you. Nothing against you or anything, but I have to move on to the next
Oh,
person.
well,
to
let me
get as many
answer fully. Let
questions
me
as-
answer fully. I just want to say we are exporting the discourse significantly, and it genuinely is disgusting. And this is because, despite what they say, if we're to refer to a particular side of the political aisle as like a shadowy group of international elitists who use money to spread political ideology across borders shiftlessly with no allegiance to nationality, it's the right. Because the right moves alongside capital, and capital under global capitalism is shiftless and international. So that's why, like, immediately you have these right-wing talking points moving across, like the plutocrats in all these countries. It is deeply unfortunate. I hope that, because I imagine this would be an option in Mexico, that the association with, like, American conservative politics could be kind of like a death knell for Mexican politicians, considering the fact that American conservatives are so racist against Mexicans.
Mm.
But I know it doesn't always work that way. I genuinely don't
That's
know what the
true.
solution is, but it's pretty f***ed up.
Thank you a lot. Sadly, this is like a big question with a lot of like layers and shit.
Oh, I totally get it. I want to do
And,
more research in Mexico.
yeah.
I've always wanted to visit Mexico. Maybe one day I will.
Hit me up.
Yeah, you'll just see a fat gringo wandering the streets of Mexico City with like a smoothie to stay cool.
We just finished off with Jamie, so now we will move on to Sleeping Cow. Go ahead,
A what?
Sleeping Cow.
A what?
Hi.
A cow?
I'm just wondering what you think about like nuclear disarmament versus keeping nukes as like a deterrent against like large-scale war between, say, China and the US.
I go back and forth on this. The easy answer is like, well, nuclear disarmament would be best, and I think that at the very least, the easy good answer is 99% nuclear disarmament with some like reserve held by superpowers as a kind of contingency. The problem obviously is A, who trusts America? I don't, and B, like
True.
I don't know if it would happen or not, but I can imagine a world where without nukes, like India, China, and Pakistan, and Israel and all their neighbors, and Russia and their neighbors, and so on, and the consequence of this like global war would be a cutting of the supply lines that would end up effectively causing as much harm as like nuclear war would, like you know, starvation, billions dead, just because everyone would be reduced down to like the local community level for agrarian needs, and it would basically like end civilization without nukes because we're so reliant on international trade. I don't know. I feel like we need fewer nukes than we have right now, and if they're going to be nukes, they should be in the hands of countries that rely heavily on international trade, like the United States, like China, because those countries have a lot to lose by just firing nukes off, whereas countries like North Korea and Iran, a lot less so.
True.
But that's just my opinion.
What about Russia?
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Sleeping Cow. And next we have Lemon Pepper
Nuke ever
Police
goes off for
State.
his
Go
crew.
ahead,
Cool.
Lemon Pepper Police State, with your question.
Yeah, big fan, been there since the side camera days, but I just have a quick question about foreign policy. I apologize.
No
so,
worries.
like, at what point should, like, a global coalition to step in to prevent something bad from happening internally, like a genocide or something, maybe like the Niger coup or something like that? And, like, what role should that global coalition take? whether it be militarily or financially.
Yeah, it's really difficult to
The
say
ultimate
because
goal.
there are examples of good interventions. Like, I think what we did in Syria was good. And there are bad ones, Libya. Generally, interventions suck. They tend to be pretty bad. It's really, really difficult to build up a country. And also, like, let's be fair, we can't do interventions to nuclear powers. So even if the world's biggest genocide is happening in the middle of Russia or something, like, it's not like NATO or the UN can go in and stop
assuming
that.
non-nuclear country.
Yeah,
like,
so but
I
that's
know we're not going to do anything about like the China, the Uyghur genocide in China.
that's
or
like
nothing
an innate unfairness, though, right? Because it
True.
means small countries always live with like the looming threat of
true.
international intervention, whereas big countries don't have to, even though we mathematically cause more harm. It would be good for us to recognize globally that
True.
interventions are sometimes necessary. There are times when we didn't intervene when we should have, and we should establish an international body that people trust to do that kind of work.
I
Problem
would
is
agree
we've tried
with
that,
that.
and people don't trust the UN. Haiti has reason to not trust the UN, so it's one of those like idyllic scenarios, well,
True.
what if we just made like an international coalition? Everyone like, well, yeah, I don't know. God willing, right?
God
yeah,
willing.
yeah, that's kind of the answer I was expecting. It's complicated, but nice talking to you. Check it. You have a wonderful day.
Have a wonderful day.
Next, we have
It's
Marokman.
almost 5
Go ahead,
a.m.
Marokman,
It's
and
not
give us
today.
your question.
So, a bit of context first now. So, you haven't taken the Irish pill yet, so we're a very neutral country. We have a triple lock on all foreign policy deployments, all that stuff. So, what's happening right now is there's a big debate in the country about maybe renegotiating our policy on neutrality, because it's been something that's long-standing since the founding of the state. And I was just wondering, do you think that neutrality is a moral foreign policy approach to take, as a kind of blanket thing? Not neutrality in the sense of like looking at Ukraine, folding your arms, saying, both sides are bad, but as a more genuinely just, we just vibing over here, man, and just not getting involved in anything.
I think that neutrality can be valuable when you're acting as a mediator, but mediators are rarely called for these days, especially not impartial ones. The reason, right now at least, that Ireland wants to remain impartial is because you guys are a tax haven and you rely on the sheltering of international capital in order to, generate your nation's sort of economic engine. So it might be.
We don't even generate anything off of that. It's so over.
Okay,
all just leaves the country now.
Hello, Boogie.
Well, I guess that's the problem
Hello.
with tax havens as a mode of national
Boogie.
growth. I mean, like
been
the
a while,
Swiss at least
stream
had
Boogie.
their Jewish gold the Nazis gave them. Whatever the case may be, well, there it is, right? Tax havens are bad for the world generally for a number of reasons, and I think that on a political level, I imagine the Irish want to maintain a kind of distance from this because of their oppositional politics to the UK, right? Like that's like it happened back in World War II as well. Nazis don't like the UK, so Ireland's kind of like, well, holding their hands up. I think that joining in would be a good idea at this point. Personally, I mean, Ireland is unquestionably a part of Europe, and everyone knows it, and everyone acts it. And getting the politics and the economy in line with that might be to the betterment not only of the world, but to your country as well.
Thanks, lad. Cover more Irish content now.
I'll try to, and I should. You have such wonderful
Thank you.
accents. to
I
listen
love
to.
you. I love you.
Take care.
Yeah,
Thank
screwed
you,
up
Marokman.
again.
Next, we have Jungle Karma. Go ahead and ask your question, Jungle.
Hey, Vaush, appreciate you and all the content you always put out. So I just want to say that first. But, the U.S., I think, is in a mental health crisis. And I think a lot of people recognize that from things you see with opioid epidemic and how people are on social media and different things like that. Something I think is, potential for healing that kind of pain that's across the country is
nice,
psychedelics.
right?
And I'm curious
It's
if you have
almost
any
5 a.m. as well.
thoughts or experiences or just anything about
That's right, we're
psychedelics that
hanging
you would
here
want to
and
share.
jiggling.
Thank you.
I'm personally distrustful of psychedelics because I have bipolar disorder, which means that occasionally I have cycles of mania and depression. I take lithium for this, and in so doing, I'm fine. But it's always made me very suspicious of
tough.
altered mental states because it can be very frustrating
Bipolar
to be
is
sitting
really
there
tough.
feeling very
Yeah.
good or very bad and knowing, like, wow, this sure is temporary. Like, you know, because all your thought processes are like, you know, leaning towards a conclusion, but at some level you have to tell yourself, well, this isn't
What's your
really
question?
what I'm going to think when I'm in a normal state. And then, like, what is a normal state, right? There's no way of knowing, which can make it a bit more frustrating. Am I in a good mood,
true.
or is it mania? Am I in a bad mood, or is it depression? That's one of the reasons why I'm a bit distrustful. It's all just, it messes with the process.
I've
that
not
I'm
done many
tenuous enough hold on as it
psychedelics.
is. However, I've read studies about microdosing psilocybin being good for depression. I'm too scared to try it, personally, at least at the moment. And I've been doing pretty all right, so I don't feel I need to. You know, chemicals are chemicals. If there's validity to that research, and if people use it responsibly, I think it can be pretty good, potentially.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
The next person we
I've
have
not
is
done many
Down with
drugs.
Zeppy. Go
Like,
ahead,
at all.
Down with Zeppy, with your question.
Truth be
Hello,
told.
Mr. Vaush. My name is JT, and my pronouns are he, him.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
My
as well.
question to
That's
you is
That's
this. So I am I'm a sympathizer of the Chinese Communist Party.
Oh boy.
I'm not a Maoist. I am a Dengist, if you're familiar with who those two people are. That being said, why does it appear to be that when it comes to like communist leadership, like Stalin and Mao, like I've read some of their works. I don't know if you have or not, but it appears to me that Stalin and Mao only sought to use communism as a means of acquiring power. I know you said earlier that communism would solve all issues, but how would communism solve the issue of madmen like Mao and Stalin from attaining power? Like how would communism prevent those people from attaining power? Sorry.
Well, this is the boring answer, but I think it's actually quite radical. I think that you have to be radically democratic before everything else. Because I agree with you, you know, so many so-called communist or socialist parties or revolutions have essentially just been personality cults for a specific leader. They say, you know, do away with this democratic apparatus, do away with this one and that one. I will lead the party. We don't need distractions. We don't need infighting. I will manage it. And then, of course, they're just a dictator, and it's just any other dictatorship. I think that we think of democracy in its current form, liberal democracy, as this cut-down, fake, agitated thing, but democracy as like an underlying principle is the single best thing liberalism stands for and fails to adhere to. We need to take that and radicalize it. Marx was a firm believer in democracy on every level. That's why he posited socialism not as equality but as freedom, a mechanism both on an economic and political level where you can maximize
Marx
the degree to
also
which people
believed that
have autonomy
Poland
and
is
self-control,
crucial
positive
for
freedom.
socialism.
If
Just so
a
you know.
movement is anti-democratic,
I'm
I
not
will
even
almost
lying.
always speak against
It's
it.
true.
Even if it brings great material wealth to its people, even if it's very good for its people, it will, if not democratic, ultimately fall on itself. And this happens
Hello?
time and time and time and time again. So that's where my sympathies lie. You know, as long as there is democracy present in a movement, even if it's slow or faltering or failing, I think that there's value there. But if there is no democracy present, if there's no meaningful way of addressing internal issues,
you know,
like even if there's
You know
good
what
being
I
done
mean?
now, the system is broken, right? I mean, you can arrive at temporarily good outcomes through bad processes, you know? Like you could, you know, after
I have the
after
good
a flood,
processes.
you know, new nationwide policy, remove all water in sight. It's great for the first day and terrible for the second year. It's just something that I worry about a lot. That's one of the reasons why I push so hard for the vote blue no matter who thing. Not because Democrats are excellent stewards of democracy, but
because fascism.
Republicans would take it away, and we need that, even in its weakened form.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Vaush. And I just wanted to say that I hope I be able to debate you on America's failed foreign policy of the past 50 years at some point in the future.
God willing.
Thank
you.
Okay.
Nice.
All right. Hey, Vaush, we had another question called, which said, "I see the concept of transgenocide to be as valid as a concept as white genocide, which is to say, not at all. In both respects, it seems that the word genocide is being used cynically for its emotional effect, suggesting the eventual physical destruction of these groups. I know you're a proponent of transgenocide, either being ongoing or upcoming. Can you tell us exactly what it entails?"
Yeah. The rhetoric of the Republican Party is explicitly eliminationist when it comes to trans people. there's a degree of abstraction that
should
you
be
have to do
spicy.
to work out the white genocide thing, where it's
Yes.
like, oh, they mean demographic replacement, and then you look at the demographic replacement, it's like, oh, well, it's not really happening, but they say it's happening. It's like, people are having interracial sex. Maybe in 5 million years, everyone will be at least coffee-toned, you know, whatever. Whereas the rhetoric and the law being applied to trans people
does
is
coffee-toned
flatly
mean?
eliminationist.
Coffees can be
with statements
very
being made by
different
people like
toned.
Michael Knowles to the effect of we need to eliminate transgenderism, to policies being pushed in red states which do everything from ban the teaching of them as a group to saying that the public expression of trans identity is tantamount to sex work or pedophilia. Really, that was a
True.
thing, and it was found to be a violation
It
of
is
the
genocidal rhetoric,
Americans'
correct.
constitutional rights, but that's what they're trying to do. You know, the idea that any kind of drag performance, which by their definition would include somebody who's male wearing female clothing, which describes a lot of trans people, that them performing in public, like a dance, would be considered like stripping. You know, now the Republicans
So
aren't going to come
wild.
out here and say that they're going to build death camps, because not even the Nazis came out there and said they're going to build death camps. You have to look at what the pattern of law and rhetoric is building towards.
True.
And I think that, respectfully, I think
True.
that you would have to be quite ignorant to not think this is eliminationist in nature.
Correct.
That's why it's so essentialized. The
Vaush
idea,
is
and this
correct.
is very common to Republican rhetoric, the idea is that trans people are
See, now this is why Vaush is amazing, even though I disagree with his Jewish response.
a form of social degeneracy, which are a product of liberal elites who are trying to corrupt Americans by normalizing and abetting this mental illness, and that these degenerates can't be presented in public because that spreads the degeneracy. This is word for word identical to the rhetoric the Nazis took with gay people. Like, it's not like there's no
Yeah.
and with the wave of legislation against them, the fact that the entirety of the
And trans people, because trans people were persecuted as well by the paragraph 174, which we will talk about soon.
political will is back behind it, there is just no comparison to the made-up narrative of white genocide. I will admit that genocide has stages, and with trans people, they are not at their final stage. But genocide does not begin when the first death camp opens its gates.
True.
If it did, then it wouldn't be a very useful word. I mean, you might as well just
True.
use like mass ethnic killing at that point. You're no longer referring to a social process or a historical trend. You're referring to like an act or a policy.
Okay, thank you.
All right, go ahead, Dink.
Hello.
Hello,
Hi,
Dink.
boss. I'm a big fan of you.
Hello. Are you German by chance?
No, I just have a really sad voice from a back accident earlier today. Oh.
Just making sure. How are you doing?
What?
I'm doing good. So. Okay.
That was good, by the way. I like that.
I appreciate it.
What's
So,
happening?
If the trans genocide is real, does that mean that the sexual
Neptune.
systemic exploitation of black men also real, otherwise known as buck-breaking by my Lord and Savior Tariq Nasheed?
Can you describe buck breaking to me?
Systemic sexual exploitation of black men by means of, first through slavery, second through,
That's true.
reconstruction
Rhetoric
efforts
is
and
the
Jim
best
Crow laws,
joker.
and now, you got, as my Lord and Savior would say,
Our favorite.
advanced buck-breaking mechanics through the prison system.
If the argument is that black men are continually victimized and have been
No. You're missing what I'm saying here, Vaush. Sexually, systemically oppressed.
Okay, well, I would certainly agree that both the prison system and slavery involved enormous amounts of sexual exploitation. I'm sure the Jim Crow era did as well. I'm not as familiar with how that would exactly work. Well, certainly, sure, yeah. Well, the fear of black men's sexuality has been a cornerstone of white supremacy for hundreds of years in this country. They used to castrate black men before hanging them if they would flee the plantation. The myth of them, being the white women.
It's
or
like
whatever,
with the
I mean,
Roma
this has been around for a
people.
long time,
So we-
presumably due to the sexual insecurity of white men. Well, yes, I suppose I do agree that buck breaking is a huge issue.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it, Vaush.
We're going to move on to Kova. Go ahead, Kova.
Hello, Vaush. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing wonderfully. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty good. Basically, I'd like to ask you a
Vaush.
question that's been on my mind lately a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And
What's on your mind?
So, basically, I'm like a white guy. So I guess it's like, I don't know. There's kind of like this movement around me of people who are like talking about like take back what's yours and all this like racial stuff. So, but basically, I'm in favor of I like the idea of spaces for white people, but I I only like to date Japanese girls, and I want to like have a family with a Japanese girl. And so, does that make me a race traitor?
By your definition, it unquestionably would. Though you can free yourself of that burden by just not being racist, and then you, a Japanese girl, would just be based and red-pilled, which is what it would be if I did it.
But they were allied with Hitler in World War II.
Yeah, and so were the Italians, and they're all black.
I'm not opposed to that either. I just really want to have like 10 children with like a hot Japanese woman, and I don't want to be a race traitor. So I need your help.
As long as you expand your definition of race traitor to encompass acceptable pairings with
This is such weak trolling. Oh, come on. This is weak.
All people along the Mediterranean, going all the way down to Turkey, and
This
all
is
East
trolling.
Asian
It's
people,
very weak.
since there's certainly a lot of genetic overlap between Japanese people and Koreans, given what the Japanese were up to at the time. I think that we can encompass about 80% of the world's population in your white ethno-state. And then you'll be able to have as many children as you want.
Yeah, I think that if I had like 8 children with like a Japanese woman, it would start like the super Hyperborean race from Magartha of like white and Japanese mixed children, and that would be like the greatest race ever in the history of the world.
Isn't this what doesn't this lead to that like incel Hapa community or whatever, where they're the half Asian, half white parents, and then they're like complaining because they're shorter on average than I am or something? Isn't that a thing?
Oh yeah, but like basically those people they don't know what's good because
is
like
a very hard
Asian
level for me.
and whites like specifically like Japanese and Germanic mixing together, it'll like create the new Hyperborean race, and it'll like take over the world.
Gotcha.
Okay, I think we're good. I think we're pretty good with this guy.
Next, we're gonna go on with Oi Daxi Wang.
Also, it's pronounced Da Xi-Wang, the great king of the West. Fascinating character from Chinese history. Before I begin, Vaush, despite this being not the most ideal, occasion.
Oh boy.
This is Dino Man talking.
Oh, hey, what's up?
Yes, it's very nice speaking with you in this occasion. But my question had nothing to do with our talk. If just also kind of a friendly reminder about that thing going on. But my question has nothing to do with politics, as I want to diverge a little bit from more heavy topic. As someone who have basically begged of you to review the announcement trailer of Grand Kasei of Total War Warhammer 3, what is your opinion on their new release, about to release new DLC, The Shadow of Change, and raising the price to $25 for one DLC? I find it quite ridiculous, and I hope Creative Assembly will do a better job of managing their marketing or games in the future. I do have a good feeling about the DLC, but I understand why there's outrage over it.
I'm learning about this from you. Wait, hold on. What's the new race?
The new race is the Changeling from Zinch, and they also have 2 legendary hero, and also from Grand Kasei, there will be the new legendary lord, Yuanbo, the Jade Dragon, the other dragon sibling. And also there's the Kislev Baba Yaga.
So wait, there's going to be 2 Chinch races, one of them being the...
Oh no, 1 legendary lord, but 2 legendary
Baba
heroes,
Yaga?
and 1 legendary lord from Kasei.
Is there not even an entire new race, and they're charging $23? It's literally
exactly. It's way more expensive than the Chaos Dwarf DLC, in my opinion.
Holy shit! What are they doing? Wait, I'm learning about this now. That's up. Wait, hold on. 3 knowledge of the lords, changeling of change, establish good stratagems with Yonbo's Grand Cathay.
Vaush is angry.
Okay, are they in debt? How much coke have they been doing over there in the office?
I suspect something to do with Feral,
Warhammer.
The new historic Total War game turns out kind of gonna be a little failure. I hope everything could turn out better than Total Warhammer, Total War 3 Kingdom. They gave up that game after 2 DLC, which was very sad as a Chinese. It was devastating for the community. We were all very sad back then.
Creative Assembly.
Thank you very Thank you, Oi.
Thank you very much,
Take care, friend.
And looking forward to our talk in the future.
It's still there. It's marked priority.
We're going to move on over to Fred Bear. Go ahead, Fred Bear. The floor is yours.
Okay, so I'm English. This is a very, it's like 4 a.m., something like that.
It is 5
So I've got a
a.m.
funny question and a serious question. So what I'm gonna say is the serious one, and that is like, so like, you know about electoralism, and I'm a fan, so this is a bit.
I think you're doing wonderfully.
Why, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, so the Labour Party in England, it has slowly shifted nothing but right. I hate Keir Starmer, and I hate his party. And your approach in America is like to always vote Dem, right? But I don't see the same thing. So I'm just wondering if I should vote Green or something, where they actually have a shot at like doing better than they do in America here, right? Because the system's slightly different.
Yeah, I would actually vote Lib Dem or Green over there, because the problem is that the gap between the parties is much larger over here than it is over there. Like, our Republicans are worse than your guys by far. But also your Labor Party is like sinking, right? You also have you have a parliamentary system, so there's slightly more room, more shoulder room for expression outside of just a party duopoly. But also, I think a critical difference is that the Labor Party has done something astonishing, right? The Democrat Party over here in America is inconsistent, dishonest, almost maliciously incompetent, and completely capital focused. But it is generally, I think, consistent. You know, we kind of know what we're getting. The Labor Party revealing that it promoted claims of anti-Semitism in order to go over Corbyn, and then shifting right, like lurching to the right once Corbyn's out to essentially return to like a Blairite position. But worse, I think Blair wouldn't have. I genuinely think that Blair would not have done this like massive rightward lurch. I think that Blair would do a Biden thing now, where he'd be like, trans people, 3 genders. You know, I think there's 3 genders, or maybe more. It's worse than that. So the Labor Party has fallen. Okay, it's Rome. It's burning.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist anymore. Godspeed. Your country's falling apart. I'm sorry.
But, okay, that's fair.
Exists a bit.
Also, there's something funny I kind of want to say is that ever since I began watching you, there is a precise uptick in the amount of bitches I have got, and I can't explain why. It's just the more Vaush I've watched, the more. I don't know. It just keeps coming.
It's all confidence. The incels were wrong, and I'm happy to hear that.
I see.
Anyway,
Thank you, Fred Bear.
Take care.
We are moving on to, and I cannot read Hebrew. I think that's Hebrew.
Yes, it is.
Go ahead.
It just says homo. That's all it says. All right. So my question is this, and it's kind of the segue from my previous question that was asked before about environmentalism and Stop Oil.
Oh boy.
My question is, do you think increased environmental vigilantism as a result of struggles caused by climate change, due to a lack of resources, such as a lack of access to water in South Asia, will become more prevalent and more extreme in nature? And do you think that those extremer forms of environmental vigilantism would be moral and ethical?
Well, the first thing I want to say to any State Department agents watching is that, morally speaking, first and foremost, my priority is to never violate the laws of the United States. I would never even think about it. I think that environmental vigilantism is a tragic, unavoidable consequence of the current state of affairs. I think it's like, not only is it real, but it's going to be something that we're going to have to actively prepare for. People keep earthquake kits when one hits, what, every 20 years in their town? We're going to need kits for when the local, power station gets blown. When pipelines are blown up, it's going to get pretty bad. And as things get increasingly bad, more and more resources from the state will be dedicated to protecting their lines of control. More money spent on police and possibly, say, National Guard in the United States protecting vital energy infrastructure. Over in China, they have already begun a broader military strategy of defending their import. They get their oil, most of their oil, from the rest of the world. It all comes in through the South China Sea, so they do everything they can to expand the definition of the South China Sea, and that area is about as well guarded navally as you could possibly get it. This is going to be an increasing problem. China and Russia are going to bicker over water resources. When Los Angeles falls, and it will fall, by the way, it would
Japan
not take
and
much to
China
disrupt
has always
water
done this.
availability
One
over
side
there.
calls it Japanese
Climate
Sea,
refugees
one
are going to be
calls
both
it
an
Chinese
internal
Sea.
and external threat. The only things I can really suggest is to prepare for these, because they're going to happen. It's not, I don't even think this is like a particularly like socialist perspective. I think that a reasonable assessment of the current state of affairs pulls us in that direction. And it's going to get very rough very quickly. I think we're going to see basically overnight the mainstream position on climate issues shift from we need to do what we can to shift to renewable energy to we need to do what we can to protect non-renewable like plants from getting bombed, because that'll be like, because otherwise it'll mean like mass blackouts, and people always value their own inconveniences over the world's, you know. So it's going to get rough. Yeah.
Do you think it would be productive?
I think that there are going to be some. Well, first of all, no action against the state is productive ever. All things that are crimes are morally wrong, but I certainly think that some actions taken in that venue would be very effective at drawing people's attentions towards some necessary conclusions. Though, very much like the Stop Oil business, it's going to be pretty difficult to thread the line of getting headlines and getting support.
Right. Now, there was a Judeo-Bolshevist conspiracy theorist who debated a while ago, and I actually ended up debating him too, and he said he would give me $500 in crypto if I beat him in the argument. And he just left the server when I beat him. So I was wondering if you could tell him that he owes me $500 in crypto.
Yeah, he does, in crypto, yeah. 500 bitcoins, even. Yeah.
I would say that, yeah.
Next, we have Doge Llama. Go ahead, Doge Llama, with your question. Vaush, did you want me to go ahead and make this the final question? We're 30 minutes past. Not sure how long you're willing.
One more over this one, and that'll be it for me.
Very well.
Okay. All right.
Go ahead, Doge
Let me
Llama.
introduce Doge Llama. Okay, right. He's gonna have a great question for you. Okay, right.
Hey, Vaush, thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate you listening to all of
it's
us,
always wrong.
ask you
That's you're right,
a wide range of questions.
You appreciate me. You put me in contact with Donald Trump. That's crazy.
No, I mean, God, I'm just really grateful he introduced me. So I'm just curious how you perceive, like, our debates and our discussions in general to be, like, how do you see those being productive in the state that our world is in right now? Like, if we are going to crumble as a society because capitalism doesn't necessarily, I mean, obviously it doesn't necessarily take care of the people that live within the society, how is it that we're going to maintain ourselves with this shit? And, like, do all these discussions then become null and void once the recession impending hits? Or, like, you know, I don't know if that makes sense. Sorry, I'm a little
First
bit nervous.
of all, at least judging from the emails that I get, I think that I help a lot of people on an individual level. You know,
absolutely.
It's not all about how to change the world. People are the world. You know,
True.
being able to make
Agreed.
people more comfortable in their skin, give them the right arguments to deal with a family member.
I
or
agree
friend,
with
or
this.
To
some
reconcile
color.
an internal disagreement they've
It's
had.
a-
That's valuable in and of itself. But moreover
It's
than
a
that,
whole
I
group
don't want
of
to
colors.
overstate my own importance here. You know, obviously I have a lot of influence, but it's nothing compared to some people. I think that there's a remarkable sort of cascade effect if you handle things properly. For example, thousands of people from my community have done canvassing and phone banking with Progressive Victory, the associated org that
True, you've helped my
helps the
mom.
fascists not win in this country. And a lot of those people are young, and a lot of them are going to grow up and be DC staffers. It's very possible, not guaranteed, but still possible, that someone who grew up watching me will one day have a hand in drafting legislation or voting on it. I don't know.
Ouch.
I don't know. It might turn out to be that way, but as long as I
Someone
act as though
who's
it's a
watching
possibility,
Lucy
I
will
feel there's a decent chance that
save
I
the
can make it
world
happen
one
on some
day.
level. And those changes, of course, cascade into further ones. So I think how much of an effect will we have? I don't know.
It's almost
Maybe I die
inevitable,
tomorrow. Maybe
true.
a car hits me. The most
No, I
you
hope
can,
not.
well, me too. The most that we can hope for is to do our best and to be satisfied with that.
too.
Maybe our best is enough,
Everything's
and maybe
about
it isn't,
me
but it
too.
is our best, and that's the most we can hope for.
I cannot believe
That's a fantastic answer.
Vaush
Thank you guys
makes
so much
everything
for like,
about
letting me
me
ask that
too.
question. Vaush, I do appreciate the positivity there. So 'cause I think all of us are in it together, and if shit does crumble, we're all going to crumble together. So thanks,
Our
Vaush.
next and final person who will be asking a question, we
Two
have
more.
McLovin
Max
here.
to make
Two more,
everything
actually.
about
After
me
Two
this,
more? Okay.
After this, I would like Ghosty to
always.
come on.
Ghosty, you've got it. I will go ahead and make that happen.
Anything you want, Vaush.
Vaush.
Hey, Vaush.
Howdy.
Hey,
As a
Vaush.
libertarian socialist myself,
Oh,
I'm kind
no.
of curious as to who the most significant
I'm worried.
political influences are in
I'm
your
worrying
life,
about this label.
or their works, and why.
Well, I guess, like, you know, there's Marx and Bernie Sanders. I think the biggest one probably would have to be Rosa Luxemburg, I think. Because one of
Ooh.
I feel like a lot of
Rosa Luxemburg, eh? The person that we're actually preparing a big material on. Interesting. See, I told you Vaush steals my talking points.
lefties are pretty good about learning about the history of leftism and leftist ideology and why it's important, but they're not really great at learning about its failures. And I think that Rosa was like the crux. She was at like the exact intersection point of what may be scaled out into like the biggest failure on the left, which is sort of like an inability to effectively differentiate revolutionary sentiment and social democratic progressivism in a juxtaposition against fascism. And this is a problem that keeps happening, I guess. So I think I learned a lot from that.
I mean,
But
Rosa
when
Luxemburg was able
just
to
getting started
recognize
with
the
my
USSR.
lefty beliefs, it was Fred Hampton. The assassination of Fred Hampton isn't, of course, anything that Fred Hampton has written. It was written after he was assassinated. But his life and his story have been very influential.
Thank you.
Of course.
Okay, and we're going to go ahead and move on to Ghosty. Ghosty, go ahead with your question.
Hi, thanks. I just wanted to ask a little question about degrowth. It was like just something that's been bothering me lately.
Oh no.
What the hey, Vaush, you're hot. And
What was
sexy
the
and cool.
point of that? Okay.
Wait, what was the argument? Wait, can you bring her on? Wait, I didn't hear. Can you ask her to repeat that?
No.
You're bad, Vaush.
Please.
You have an actual
this
personal
level is
question
very
here. You
difficult.
can answer instead, baby.
What a
hot
troll,
dog.
Vaush.
I actually didn't hear what it was. I was reading chat.
Oh, they said.
they screamed the N-word.
They screamed the N-word.
And I didn't even get to hear it? Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
All right, somebody who isn't them. We said one more, right? That didn't count.
How about baby
Yeah,
hot dog?
okay. Well, I have Mike the spelling
N-word,
expert.
I
If
guess.
you want to forego my list here, we can go to Baby Hot Dog.
Oh boy.
All right, go ahead, Baby Hot Dog.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Howdy.
Yep.
Yes, hi. So Vaush, you're part of this ecosystem on YouTube that's like this, streamer, debate bro, like you, Destiny,
Oh,
iHypocrite. What I want to ask you is, do you feel as your channel
Why
starts
are
to
you
become
evil,
starts to
Vaush?
get bigger and bigger? I don't know who changed my name
Slow
to Biden
down.
Lover, but how dare you? But as your channel gets bigger, do you ever feel? Because what I've noticed is like streamers that I've followed for a while, even if they start out a bit nuanced and middle ground, they tend to
Middle ground.
become more extreme as time goes by. Like
Middle
Jimmy Dore, for
ground is
example,
crap.
started as like somebody that like was like
Don't be
comedian
middle
and has like
ground.
left wing takes to now completely bananas.
Horrible.
So what
Middle
I want to ask
ground.
you is, and I don't even know if you
No.
could answer this,
No.
but
That's
do you
not
feel
good.
as your channel gets bigger and you have more subscribers, do you ever feel pressured that like there's some things that come up that you want to have a more nuanced take about, but the idea or maybe the pressure of,
I
like,
can already say that Vaush will say no. I say what I want. I'm sort of the person that, of course. I don't think. To me, do you have a weird question to me?
losing subscribers or saying something that will piss off your fan base, does that become more and more of a reality in the content that you put out?
No, I feel like if anything, I've gravitated in the other direction.
There you go.
I do think that that's a pattern. I think that's a real thing that that definitely tends to happen, in large part because it can be difficult to maintain the interest of an audience without like doing that shift. I think though, the more time I spend here, the more I define myself in opposition to the people who fall into that process. Jimmy Dore is one example, right? But like a lot of lefties seem to think that good geopolitical analysis is the same as being anti-American. Now, don't get me wrong, that is a substitution that will get you a correct answer a decent number of times. But it's not the same as having a good geopolitical take. And now we see this, of course, with Ukraine, where for some reason, like pretty much all of the Western liberal world and quite a bit of the non-Western liberal world united in their support of Ukraine, and a bunch of lefties start hand-wringing and start like making defenses for Russia and like maybe the NATO did that. Like it's really weird. So I want to gravitate more towards nuance. I think that it takes a lot of principle to know when you can be like a brash advocate and when you have to kind of dial it down. And the key to not feeling the pressure in that sense, I think, is to know how to be interesting and funny and engaging, even when you're not pushing some kind of like cultist, you have to listen to me narrative,
That's me. I'm interesting,
like,
right?
You feel people will
and
sort
I'm
of skip
not,
out you know, kind of insecurity. I don't find Jimmy Dore particularly interesting or funny. Maybe
I'm
he feels he has to do
I don't know about
trend towards
funny,
extremism
but
in order to keep
we
people's
don't all
Right.
have to
Well,
be
cool.
funny.
Thanks for answering my question.
We're not all
Of course, and
comedians.
Thank you for asking.
And Vaush, I just want to thank you very much for joining Debate Politics.
I do think I'm funny
and
sometimes.
entertaining this AMA. And for those who are listening, you can find us for other exciting debates and hang out with us on discord.gg/debate politics. Good to have you here, Vaush, and I'm going to ask you a classic closing question to quote the legendarily hilarious Jesse Lee Peterson. Did you have fun?
I did have fun. Thank you very much. I hope you have a wonderful day.
You have a great night.
Take care.
Thank y'all.
Have a great evening.
Peace, everybody.
Well, I'd say that was pretty fun, actually. I'd say that was a nice.
You made me upset today, Vaush. You made me upset.
Of questions, especially that second to last one. Real high IQ stuff there.
Vaush made me upset.
Politics? Debate?
I cannot believe how upset Vaush made me. Okay,